Hello and welcome to our Writer Showcase for the week. We're doing something different in terms of we're going to try doing it Wednesday, both for practical and experimental reasons. One of them being that Christmas weekend is this week. And so we're going to shift the Writer Showcase to Wednesday, see if that works. And we'll do other things another day. Anyway, allow me to bring in my lovely guests. This first off, Neph Champion.
Good afternoon, guys.
Howdy. Lovely to see you as ever. We have more people coming in. Please welcome the one and only... where is Carl? Oh, let's do this.
Greeting.
Hello, Count Valerian.
Greetings, my lady, and thank you, Sir Dunchap.
Always a pleasure. Let me see where. Let me see. I got more entrances. Where did I put Carl Sailor's? I know I put it somewhere. Somewhere. Huh. Strange. Deleted. Oh, found it.
Hello.
Oh.
Yeah. So since
I thought you were doing me with the dragon just as a generic opening.
What? No, that would be. You wouldn't dare steal my dragon.
It would not be stealing.
Private
I would be
property is
seizing
sacred.
it. That it might be made to serve the glorious people of Westeros.
Private property is
I don't know.
sacred.
What's the Dothraki word for communism?
Oh.
I don't think there is one.
Well,
Yeah,
the Dothraki
it's
kind of practice. Well, the Dothraki don't have money, so
They do
I
have.
think they
Yeah.
already practice communism.
Well,
Anarcho-primitivism. No,
Pretty
it
much.
wouldn't be anarcho because they have a hierarchy, a very.
and they have
very
slaves, and the slaves don't necessarily possess anything.
Ah, yes. Ooh, that would make them one of the earlier ones, for the pre-feudal societies.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Please
well.
welcome Tarek.
Targeting system's knackered, boss.
Am I balling it?
Good afternoon.
Hello,
Greetings.
Derek.
Hello, Tarek. Also, can I just say, how the hell did Tony Stark not blow his eye out from the exhaust from that thing? Am I the only one who just got a little bothered by that?
Yes,
That's actually a problem, yeah.
I don't really think it's that big of a problem. I think the better question is how that thing didn't just collapse like on itself. I think the silo would take much more than a single blast to be completely, to close like that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
The Ruskies built these things tough.
Apparently, yeah.
All right, then.
All right.
Well, alrighty. So, Carl Sailor, I think you have work, correct?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I can
So I
go.
think so. I'll
No, he's not, actually.
um.
No,
There's a
he's
debate
not.
to be had.
No,
There's a
no, he is not. He is
No.
absolutely not a Mary Sue.
No, he's not. He has all sorts of problems that a Mary Sue
Yeah.
will not ever have.
Ray did
The
not have a
existence of
drinking
Steve
problem.
Rogers disproves Tony Stark's Mary Sue-ness.
yeah.
Compared to Tony Stark, Rogers is the Mary Sue. But
Yeah.
Rogers has his own problems.
That's a real big stretch to go for.
Well,
Yeah.
That's
And I
an
think we already had it. We're going to have another stream on what a Mary Sue is.
yeah,
Yeah.
we are.
Oh boy. Anyways, yes, I can take the first one as
Alrighty.
it goes.
and then
All right.
Neph, and then Valerian, and then Tark, and then I will go last.
All right.
Okay.
I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I'm going to be eating for a bit starting now, so we'll have to see what's happening later.
All right. So here we go. This is from the next book in my series, the sequel to The Gates of Dawn. And this is something that happens fairly early on in the book, after Lord Perseus Hiram Stolos has just been voted to be the successor to the Queen. But he's a modern fellow, so he decides not to take on the mantle of a king, but the Lord Protector of Aurora. And this is him sitting down in his office for the first time and getting a visit from a very interesting person with a very interesting idea. So here we go. Lord Stolos set himself down in the chair. So, this was Her Majesty's private study. Dreadfully opulent. There would need to be some sweeping changes before he could truly feel at his ease in here. For a start, all those gilded portraits on the walls were too much of a distraction. They would have to go. The gold trimming on the lamp fixtures could be removed as well. A better purpose could surely be found for all that gold. The brightly patterned Illyrian carpet on the floor could be replaced with something much less ostentatious. If only there was some way to reduce the size of the room itself. 10 meters wide and 20 long for one person was simply a waste of space. Lord Stolos considered the desk in front of him, a decadently carved monstrosity of lacquered mahogany. It would probably have to stay, unfortunately. Removing something 3 times as wide as the door would be a little impractical. Lord Stolos pulled his chair closer to the desk and checked the drawers. Every last one of them was empty, save for a single stack of blank royal letterhead in the bottom drawer. No doubt the Queen had been passing the crucial matters of state off onto lesser bureaucrats. No more of that, Lord Stolos told himself. The time has come for competent central leadership. He looked up at the sound of tinkling glass. Hobart was at the liquor cabinet. He seemed a little nervous. You don't mind if I pour myself a drink, do you? Oh, go right ahead, Lord Stolos said. You may as well. I don't touch that stuff. Thank you. Hobart nodded and poured himself a glass, which he downed in one swig. Incidentally, Lord Stolos said, you did a very good job today, gathering the new lords. It was your idea, Percy, Hobart said, setting the glass and bottle back in the cabinet. I just did as you said. Well, nevertheless, I'm glad to have your support, Lord Stolos said. I hope I can continue to count upon you in the future. Of course, Hobart said. My lords, a silver-haired manservant poked his head through the door at the opposite end of the room. Lord Kalstrom desires an audience. Show him in, Lord Stolos said. The manservant vanished, and in strode a tall man in his middle years with dark hair and a sharp face. Percy, Kalstrom said jovially. I'm glad to see you're settling in all right. Likewise, my Lord Kalstrom, Lord Stolos nodded. Oh, enough of that, my lord business, the man said. It's just Aaron, if you please. As you say, Lord Stolos smiled back. Aaron? Hobart? Lord Kallstrom nodded toward the other man. Oh, I'll get out of your way, Hobart said, hastily closing the liquor cabinet. I'm sure you have much to discuss. Of course, Lord Stolos said. I'll see you around, Bart. Hobart nodded and showed himself out of the room, leaving Stolos alone with Kallstrom. Well, I must say, Lord Kallstrom said, slowly approaching Stolos' new desk. That was quite a showing you made down in the Lord's chamber. I'm flattered you think so, Lord Stolos said. I've always believed in speaking from the heart. Yes, Lord Kallstrom planted his hands on Lord Stolos' desk. I'm very interested to see how well you can back up all that pretty rhetoric. Subtlety was evidently not one of the man's strong points. You don't believe I can, do you? Stolos said, trying not to sound intimidated. Oh, not at all, not at all. Lord Kallstrom backed off ever so slightly. I have every confidence in your leadership capabilities. Good, Lord Stolos said warily. Not yet even an hour into my reign, and people are already aiming to supplant me. As a matter of fact, Lord Kallstrom said, I may be able to offer my assistance. Lord Stolos leaned back in his chair, trying to project an image of confidence while at the same time seeming reasonably interested. Go on. Words can be a powerful tool in the right hands, Lord Kallstrom said, but they ultimately mean nothing unless they reach enough people. It seems to me that what you need most right now is a means of quickly disseminating your rhetoric to the masses. Lord Stolos nodded carefully. He had to admit Kallstrom had a valid point. What are you proposing, then? Something to do with news journals, perhaps? Oh, nothing so old-fashioned, Lord Kallstrom chuckled. Aurora is a modern kingdom. The forward march of technology is our birthright and our destiny. My proposition represents nothing less than a revolution in the way we communicate with our fellow man. Well, now you've certainly piqued my interest, Lord Stolos said. What is the nature of this proposal of yours? Lord Kallstrom grinned. News by radio. I'm not sure I follow, Lord Stolos said. Do not most news journals already make use of the Royal Telegraph Network for communications purposes? Or do you mean connecting directly to journalists in the field? What I mean, Kallstrom's eyes glittered with excitement, is delivering the news directly to the people by radio. Fascinating, Lord Stolos said. Most fascinating indeed, Lord Kallstrom went on. Last year, Lord Newton made quite a show about demonstrating the transmission of human speech by radio for the first time ever. And ever since then, I've been absolutely enthralled by the promise of this new technology. Just imagine, someday in the not-too-distant future, the entire realm, from Dalton to Torrenberg, shall listen in rapt silence as you address the people directly. Well, your enthusiasm is commendable, Lord Stolos said. I assume you have a plan to distribute radio receivers to the public in order to facilitate this? But of course, Lord Kallstrom assured. I have diagrams and production schematics for properly finished radio cabinet systems for the well-to-do, less elaborate devices for the practical man, and even self-assembly kits for the less fortunate. Oh, you've clearly put quite a bit of thought and consideration into this venture, Lord Stolos said. Oh, this is no mere business venture, Lord Kallstrom boasted. It is a revolution. Which, of course, raises the question, Lord Stolos said. If this is indeed such a marvelous idea, why have you yet to put your designs into action? Ah, yes, Lord Kallstrom's tone changed. The problem is one of capital, I'm afraid. The necessary expenses to start up the process are substantial. There is the matter of setting up the chains of supply and production. Materials must be sourced, workers hired, advertisements published. There is also the means of transmission itself. Access to broadcasting sites must be required, and machinery modified appropriately. In the extreme case, new infrastructure will ultimately need to be constructed to access unserviced areas. And keep in mind that throughout this process, revenues cannot be generated until a regular audience has actually been grown. I understand, Lord Stolos nodded. Oh, yes, I understand you perfectly. Why risk your own capital when someone else's will do just as well? Precisely, Lord Kalstrom said, bringing a capstone to his entire argument. This enterprise offers an incredible bounty of prestige and power to the realm. But if it is to be successful, the government must take an active role in its development until the time is right for private industry to take the lead. And there's the endgame, Lord Stolos noted. To have the state perform the heavy labor of building up a new industry and then hand it off to private business interests. Or to you, probably, as is most likely the case. I knew you'd see the wisdom of this plan, Percy, Lord Kalstrom said. Queen Cassandra, rest her soul, never had the inclination to see such a project through. But now that we have a real man of vision at the helm, I'm certain we shall prevail. My word, you're laying it on a bit thick, aren't you? Well, only because it's true, Percy, only because it's true. Well, I shall certainly keep your proposal in mind, Lord Stolos nodded. Was there anything else you wanted to say, Aaron? Well, that's about it, Lord Kalstrom smiled. I'll be about for a while. Let me know when you come to a decision. And with that, he turned about and strode confidently out of the office. That one could be trouble, Stolos recognized. Kalstrom's proposal was tempting, of course. It was a new day, and Aurora surely deserved to reap the spoils of progress. But nothing in this world was ever done for free. Kalstrom definitely wanted something in return. How much he could afford to give the man, well... He'll not control me so easily, Stolos grinned. I'm much too clever for that braggart, for that swollen walking ego. In the meantime, there was plenty of work to be done right about now to set the ship of state right. The state of the realm would need to be taken. There were ministers to be appointed, a war council to convene, and of course the funerary arrangements for Her Majesty. But first, a statement to the public. Stolos reached into the drawer, pulled out a sheet of paper, and began to craft his first official press release as the Lord Protector of Aurora. And there it is.
Very nice.
I gotta say, I would love to see your take on like a 40K commissar. You have the voice for it. Like
That was lovely.
I would love to see your take on it, just because the verbiage, the vocabulary used, the voice used, it would just be, I feel, fantastic. And I'm really excited to see where this is going.
Yeah.
Yes. Same here.
Well, you can all read ahead on my Patreon page with a link to my secret Discord server where you can watch me write in real time. But yes, I've worked long and hard to cultivate this vocabulary, and I will be damned if I'm not going to get some use out of it. Thank you very much.
Oh, definitely. For sure.
Yes. Yes.
So, for some reason, I was wondering what chronology do they use? They don't have AD or BC. What do they have instead of that?
I actually didn't manage to include this part in the first book. I never did find a good place to include it in the first book, but they measure their calendar by the year of the founding, and that was 614 years ago.
Oh, okay, cool.
So it's
they're in the 1600s, basically.
well, the 600s.
Well, yeah.
But,
Okay.
But it's
but
you can think of
technologically, they're early
more
20th
like
century.
if after like when the Magna Carta was signed, if that immediately reset the calendar. So we would be somewhere around the year 700 at that point.
Oh.
Year
Okay.
800. I forget exactly what century.
Totally makes sense. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Magna Carta is 1215, but this sounds like it's early 20th century from technologically speaking.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
there's radio.
I
It
did
doesn't
quite a
sound
bit of
illegal.
I did an ungodly amount of research over the past few days as I was reworking this. This is something I originally just had Lord Kalstrom as this like random would-be mover and shaker, but I have something very important planned for him later on. No spoilers. So, and I really needed to find something more substantial to weave his thread a little deeper into the pattern, as it were.
Cool.
To be
I like it.
Also, if you can spot the Wheel of Time reference I made in this scene, I will probably give you a cookie.
to be honest, the whole thing sounds a lot like Dishonored if you ever played that game.
Never did get around to that, I'm afraid.
Because I'm kind of having the visual. I'm kind of seeing the scene as like it's set in one of the offices in the game Dishonored, which is a very good game.
I'll take your word for it. I'll definitely look it up.
All right.
So,
Right.
my turn.
Yep.
All right.
All right. So, this is the next segment of my Fundamental Feelings Chapter 5. Right after the nice kid, Dane said to himself. Wonder if he realizes he's harem bait. So that's where we left off last time. So they're still in the base, though they've moved venues a little bit. They are now at their tents. So, where to next? Usna asked, after the flap fell closed behind them. I don't know about any of you, Kirithel said slowly, as he stretched his arms over his head, but I'm tired. As if on cue, Pina yawned. The whole group laughed for... Sorry about that. The whole group laughed for a few minutes. Pina looked around as if puzzled at the mirth. Then Usna yawned herself, and the feathered dragon form seemed to snicker as if getting a joke. Sorry to keep you all waiting, a new voice said. The party turned their attention to the new elf. She was shorter than Kismil by half a head, but otherwise the similarity was almost uncanny, and she had just finished swatting Kismil, and was now looking between her fellow elf, Ruby, Usna, and himself. Filing away the odd NPC interaction in the contemplate hopefully never box in his mind, Kirithel cleared his throat. Tilnell, I suppose. Yes, we have a couple of tents ready for you, if you will follow me. Tilnell gestured for them to follow her deeper into the camp. Then she grabbed Kismel by the arm, as if intent on having her by her side. Weird. Where were the devs going with this character interaction? Zumfut. The village of Zumfut was built into the very trees of the forest in a way that amazed all, even the beta testers of the group. Welcome to Zumfut, Diavel said cheerfully as they passed the boundary of the safe zone. This is sure an interesting place, Klein said, for all the new players in the group. So, there are a few things to do here, right? Yep, Diavel said with a grin. First, I thought you'd want to take the guild creation quest. You are a man of great intelligence and forethought. Let's go, Klein said with a grin. Eleanor Base. Usna stretched as she and the rest of the party followed Tilnell to a couple of large tents. So, Tilnell, how many of these tents are for us? Kirito asked as he looked over the tents. There are 2, Tilnell replied, blushing. Apparently, Kismel had said something as the other elf met the blush with a pleased smile. The tents are rather large on the inside, though the lady's companion may... The elf blinked as Pina slunk into one of the tents. Silica stuck her head in and back out with a smile. Nah, she's fine. Hey, Pina! Leave some blankets for us! Don't give me that look! Ruby looked at Asuna, and they shared a shrug. I guess this is the lady's tent. I see. That works, Kirito replied, utterly failing to hide a yawn from the PC and themselves. Sometimes auto emote just kicked in. Otherwise, you'd do freaky yawns with closed lips. Perhaps you should rest, Tilnell asked. Then she nudged Kismel, who seemed to be staring at the lady's tent. Maybe she was interested in Pina. Oh, maybe the game had a persona-like relationship system. Like that Let's Play she'd seen of Persona Lucky 7. Maybe Silica could up the links between them and their allies by talking with Kismel about it. Oh, now Tilnell was gently leaning her head towards Ruby and Kismel was pouting. Oh dear. Was the system more like a dating game's good bad end system? Was Ruby on a bad end track? She'd have to keep an eye on her friend. That was the plan, Kirito agreed, turning to the group. I will see you all in a few hours. He walked into one of the tents, the flaps falling closed behind him. I may just explore a bit before bed, maybe indulge in a little elf care. Yay! Is your friend... Tilnell began in the wake of Kirito reaching out and dragging Koshin into the tent. No, we just have to keep an eye on Koshin, Asuna reassured her. What do you mean you don't want to deal with the maiming? Protested head player from the inside of the men's tent. Asuna grinned. I'm going to bed too, she said, following Silica into the ladies' tent. Ruby giggled. Wait for me, Asuna, she said. And Asuna had to giggle as the shorter girl half-tackled her from behind. She hadn't had a sleepover in forever. Sorry about that. Kismel, Ruby prompted. The elf stood outside their tent. My lady, the dark elf managed, not meeting her gaze. Did you stand guard all night? Ruby prompted. Asuna and the rest of you saved my life, the elf said, finishing rather firmly as Kirito emerged from the men's tent in time to catch the end of their conversation. I shall fetch Tilno. As the NPC left, Ruby blinked. She's changed since the beta, Kirito noted after a moment. I can't quite put my finger on it. Yeah, Asuna agreed. I mean, she's supposed to have retired to her tent, right? Right. And be a bit less personable? Not cold, really, just... Ruby raised one eyebrow as she looked at him, unable to resist. More like you? One day, Kirito half growled. I will come up with a comment that will wipe that smirk off your face. I await your efforts, Ruby said kindly. She thought. She noticed Silica had emerged. Whatever it is, the younger girl noted, don't count on Asuna for insight. Ruby blinked. Silica, Asuna may not have much experience. She thinks Kismel might be interested in Pina, Silica said with a sigh. Pina? Ruby said and turned to Kirito, who was frowning thoughtfully as well. She wasn't sure what the vibe was that Kismel was giving off, but Pina was not the focus. I mean, if anything, she seems to be fixating on Asuna, Silica said. And Pina raised her head from the dish of meat Silica had laid out to give a huff and a nod. I must agree, Koshin said as he joined the group, looking far too awake for this time of day. After the rescuing of her by ourselves, she has clearly linked her survival to Asuna's actions. Kirito scratched his chin. So what? You're saying the personality subroutine has decided to express this as a crush? I mean, my little sister had to deal with a few of those when she started middle school, from both genders. Koshin smirked as he put on his glasses. And what about you, Sensei? Kirito scowled. Don't be ridiculous, Koshin. Why would anyone have a crush on me? Ruby had to shake her head. Her poor, sweet, innocent, withdrawn friend didn't realize the half of it, did he? Still, it was odd. As far as she knew, none of the Dark Elves had any such relationship system in place. In order for that to happen, it would have to come from a higher source. Oh, no. There were only two such possible higher sources. Bishop was a cold fish by design, which meant Ruby. What? Oh, Asuna. Good morning, Asuna. Sorry, spaced out a bit there, Ruby said, managing a laugh. No, wait. The way the others were looking at her, it didn't sound natural at all. Was there a problem? No, Asuna assured her with a smile. I was just wondering why Koshin was wanting popcorn for breakfast. Ah, good. Trivia. That was safe. Well, popcorn is a cereal, Asuna. What I said, Koshin drawled. And he could stop giving her that knowing look any second! Kismel, what are you doing? Tilnell called up to her older sister. Nothing, Tilnell, Kismel called back, as she picked the last of the Zorula she'd been picking and jumped down with her full basket. I'm just gathering breakfast for the adventurers. One of Tilnell's eyebrows went up. You do know that we have a mess tent to eat in, right? The adventurers are probably going to eat there. You don't know that, Tilnell. Kismel told her little sister. Besides, I think they will like Zorula. It is one of our delicacies. You know that, right? Tilnell gave her a deadpan look. Kismel felt her cheeks heating up. I'm not very convincing, am I? No, Tilnell agreed with a smirk. No, you are not being very subtle at all. Kismel's shoulders slumped. I was afraid of that, she mumbled. Kismel, Tilnell, is something the matter? Kismel looked up to see that it was Asuna. Asuna, hi. Kismel squeaked. What's with the basket, Kismel? Asuna asked. I thought you might like to try a few things for breakfast. Kismel hoped that she didn't look Too much like a puppy. Asuna blinked in confusion. That's for me? Yes. Kismel offered the basket, and Asuna slowly took the offered gift and looked through the contents. What are some of these? Asuna asked as she started walking back towards the tents. I don't think I recognize a few of them. The one you're holding is a Zurula, Kismel explained happily. It's a delicacy. Really? Asuna asked. Well, in that case, I can't wait to try it. Kismel couldn't help herself. She preened. Thank the goddess that the adventurer had not been looking at her. She shot Telnel a smug look and got an eye roll in return. Kismel, where can we find Zarula? Asuna asked, bringing Kismel's attention back to the young adventurer. It grows in and around the camp, Kismel explained, and it's quite sweet. I can't wait to taste it then, Asuna declared happily. Telnel rolled her eyes, shaking her head. Her sister should know that pursuing an adventurer was unwise. Sumput. Diavel stopped. Here we are, the cathedral, the beta tester said with a wave of his hand. This is where you can find the guild creation quests. You were going to create a guild, I believe? Klein nodded. Indeed. Well, it starts here. You need 5 people willing to join, Diavel instructed. Then you need to speak with the priest inside. He will give you the task of retrieving a medallion from the spider's nest, which is in the Forest of Wandering. What about the others? Klein asked. We are still in a party, just split up. Will they be automatically added to the guild logs? Diavel shook his head. No, that's not how it works, thankfully, the beta tester replied. The names of the guild members need to be added manually. Is there a chance we will be meeting up with the others on this quest? Ishin asked. Yes, a few of the chapters of the Elven campaign take place in the nest too, Diavel replied. We won't be seen as a threat, as we are still in Kirithal's party. That's good, Klein said. So, shall we activate the quest then? If you're ready, then destiny lies within, Diavel intoned with great gravitas as he turned to the doors, pushing them open. And Lenore base. Kirito sighed as he watched Koshin. I really wish that Koshin would take better care of himself, he complained. It wouldn't be so bad if we still had the respawn mechanic, but Koshin acts as if we do. This game was serious business. Yes, it was a game, but it also wasn't. If I may offer my sympathies. Kirito looked up to see Telnel standing there, holding a basket of dried meats and fruits on her hip. Kirito suddenly remembered that he hadn't eaten yet, as his stomach growled softly. Really? Kirito asked, as Telnel set the basket down in front of him. Friends, or is it family? My younger cousins are like that, Telnel replied with a sigh. Kessel is almost as bad as your friend, though I must say he's never lost a limb. And then there's Tinsel. I swear those two are going to give me gray hairs. Kirito chuckled ruefully. If it isn't Koshin getting hurt, it's Argo sticking her nose where it doesn't belong. He sent a fond glance towards the lady's tent. Of course, Ruby is just as bad, if not worse in some ways. Something crashed into his back, but Kirito's strength stat proved to be higher. Hitaka? Ruby's voice trilled. Not talking badly about me, are you? Oh, goddess damn it, he could hear her pout. No, Ruby, never, Kirito replied with a tired sigh. Eat so we can get going then, Ruby demanded playfully. What were we supposed to do again? Retrieve something that belongs to a missing soldier and bring back a fang from the queen spider? Kirito asked as he retrieved a piece of dried meat. Once Tilnell had indicated that the food in the basket was for him. Unless those pesky manipulators changed something, then yes, Ruby said, plopping down next to Kirito. I must be off, Tilnell said. I still need to get those medical supplies off Kismal. Kirito gave her an absent-minded nod and didn't notice Asuna taking Tilnell's place. So, how hard are the next couple of quests? Silica asked, as she sat down on Ruby's other side. Kirito traded a glance with Ruby. I suppose that all depends on how much you dislike spiders, Silica. Spiders? Silica asked. I suppose it depends on the size and species of spider? I don't know, Silica, Kirito warned. These spiders get pretty big. I'll tell you how much I hate them once I see the spiders, Silica replied. Sounds good, Kirito said as Tilnell came back and sat next to Silica. Asuna barely noticed Kismel's pout when the elf found she had to sit next to Argo. That elf was still acting quite strange, but it wasn't something that needed to be brought up yet. And that's it. Sorry about
Coughing. Now
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. That was what I was worried would happen.
you're fine.
No worries. That's what the remote chat is for.
Mm-hmm.
Very kawaii.
Thank you.
Very kawaii, Desu.
Yeah.
Is it kawaii or kawaii?
Kawai. So
I mean, like the pronunciation.
yeah, it's kawaii.
Kawaii.
Yes.
Again, very kawaii, Desu.
Yeah. And I'm sorry if my voice acting wasn't very good, but
You're fine.
that damn
No worries.
cough just makes it really hard.
I imagine it does.
No, I can still picture the picture little Ruby getting flustered.
Yeah.
She's adorable. Adorable.
And
Very, very cute.
compared to everyone else, she's practically tiny. I have her at 155 centimeters tall.
Now, what's that in American? Like 5'5"?
Let me just pull up my calculator.
No.
5 centimeters is 61 inches. She's 5'1".
I was close. I was close.
Yeah, she's very petite compared to everyone else.
Mhm.
And I did it
Moe.
that way on purpose.
That's the word I was looking for, Moe. That's another one. Kawaii Desu Moe. There we go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Alrighty. Tarek.
I
No,
thought-
Valerian.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
gonna say.
Valerian. Valerian. Yeah, Valerian, sorry.
Still eating on fighting my computer. I can't tell them that because this thing won't click. Sorry. I can't do anything. I can't say anything. I can't do anything because of my goddamn computer. Oh, fuck you! You piece of crap!
Jesus.
Pardon me,
Wow.
you lot. Did you hear that?
Yes.
Yes, we heard you.
I know you did it on purpose.
No, I didn't. I've been fighting my computer ever since the Lady Neph stopped because I wanted to unmute myself so I could, applaud her and tell her I hoped she wasn't getting the Rona, and I was going to tell her that Pina should end up being the main character and the hero at the end. But I can't do my thing now because I'm still eating. So yeah, you were not meant to hear that. That's the only time when I cuss mostly is when I'm fighting my computer.
Do you want me to go instead, or?
If you wouldn't mind, or someone else
I can come around and swear at it.
I have mine ready if you're all right with that, Blarion.
Oh yes.
All right. So, what this is this was supposed to be. It changed 3 times when I wrote it. When I started, it was supposed to be a proof of concept for the book I'm writing. You know, a demo. Then I thought it turned into the prologue for the first book. It didn't. As it stands right now, I thought it'd be a good prologue for book 3, and that's where it is right now. So I think it's still easy enough to follow what's going on, and it kind of references the first book anyway. So I'm just gonna go from there. Okay. The chilling night wind bit at Mikhail's face as he trudged through the snow-covered streets. His long blue cloak held close against his body in a vain attempt to keep warm. The street was quiet. All of the windows in the surrounding stone and wooden houses were dark, and those that were able to had their windows boarded for the night. The only light in the street came from further down the road at a large 4-story building, its roof covered in snow the same as the rest of the building, but its windows were lit with a brilliant yellow as shadows moved within the interior of the building. Mikhail continued through the snow and ice, arriving at the door and looking up at the sign which read "The Scattered Star" before opening the door to let himself in. The interior of the inn was in stark contrast to the bitter cold outside. It was warm, with a roaring fire on the western end of the building, several candles lit on the tables, as well as braziers lining the walls to keep the building illuminated. The stone flooring, walls, and wooden arches worked well to keep the building insulated. The scent of wood, ale, and what Mikhail assumed to be a particularly savory piece of pork permeated the room, resulting in a delightful odor. The tavern was quiet, with only a handful of people at separate tables quietly talking about their business, enjoying their meal, and some just drinking from their flagons and standing near the fire to get warm. Mikhail took off his cloak and hung it on the wall before kicking the snow off his brown boots and walking over to a washing bowl. He dipped his hands into the ceramic bowl and brought the chilly water to his face, rubbing it lightly. When he finished, he grabbed a small cloth and began to dry his face as the water in the bowl was starting to go still again. He put the cloth back and looked into the water. Where reflected back at him was a young man in his mid-20s, his proud brown hair parted to the side. He had a strong profile, even with a well-grown and groomed beard covering his face. One could see that he had a strong chin and cheekbones. His dark blue eyes were slightly sunken in, tired from long nights of study reading dusty tomes by candlelight in the college library. His skin tanned from being out in the field during the days, studying at ether sites and excavation sites. Working on these sites had also caused his body to become lean and toned with muscle. Mikhail took a deep breath and sighed. He heard the sound of a string lazily being strummed. Turning his head, he saw the source. Another young man sitting at the table near the bar, a lute in hand as he played another note. The man took his right hand off the lute and picked up his quill and began to jot something down into a book, while occasionally looking over at a piece of parchment. He was a stocky man. His long-sleeved white undershirt and green vest clung to his broad shoulders. His eyes were dark blue, and his brows were furrowed, as he seemed to be lost in thought. His dark brown hair reached as far back as his neck, and his bangs just hovered above his eyes. He had a square face, that was rough and unshaven, and hair that appeared to be the face that was rough with unshaven hair and appeared to be in his late 20s. Mikhail approached the man, who was lost in his work, his hand moving rapidly through the book as ink decorated the page. Just before he reached the table, the man lifted his head and revealing an expression of frustration, his brow furrowed, irritation, not looking at Mikhail, but almost as though he was looking through him. A moment later, the man put the quill down on the table and rubbed his face. As soon as his hands left his face, Mikhail saw that the frustrated expression was replaced with a delighted one, and the man reclined in his chair. "I was wondering when you were going to come and see me," the man said jovially, looking at Mikhail. "Have you even left this spot since I last saw you, Tarek?" Mikhail asked, sounding annoyed. He pulled the chair from the table and took his seat. Tarek rolled his eyes and began collecting pieces of parchment and placed them inside the book. Mikhail leaned over, looking at the parchment. The penmanship was poor, letters changing their size, Their sizes, words crossed out, misspelled words, and some sentences that were incomplete or ran very long. I was gone for about 2 months. I was accompanying a group from the Lost Company. They had taken a job in Dresden, and I thought I would find inspiration for my next composition if I went with them. We all got back this afternoon, Tarek answered as he closed his book and looked up at Mikhail. It was Mikhail's turn to roll his eyes as he sat straight up in his chair. He felt a frustrated look starting to appear on his face. For the sake of our father, what are you doing? You are blessed with resources, education, opportunity, and the power of the gods themselves, yet you squander it all just so you can go gallivanting around the world, entertaining commoners? Have you at least mastered that lute of yours, or are you still as inept as when we were children? Mikhail asked, his voice ranging from annoyance to anger, trying to keep himself in check, but ultimately unable to hide his disappointment. Tarek's brows furrowed as a frown appeared on his lips, and he stared into Mikhail's eyes. Oh, truly, my life would be far more fruitful back in the college, meeting with the Archmage, having him push his responsibility onto me, doing research by candlelight through dusty old tomes, only hearing about great acts instead of witnessing them, and sometimes participating in them, giving lectures to overprivileged children, watching them grow drunk on a combination of ego and power they haven't earned? Tell me, were you even able to teach them to light a torch, or did the lesson result in them destroying the West Tower again? The two bore into each other, neither giving quarter as the air around them began to grow thick and tense. Mikhail could hear a few of the other patrons murmur to each other, and could feel them staring at him and Tarek. He then noticed one of the tavern maidens approaching them. She was a beautiful maiden, complete with fair, flawless skin, a slender frame, and her long red hair draped down her back, swaying in the air as she walked towards the table. She had a symmetric face, well-proportioned, and beautiful, even with the nervous expression on it. My lords, the management requests that if you're going to fight, please do it outside. The maiden's voice trembled with every word. The maiden's voice trembled. Every word was shaky, as she couldn't even look either man in the eye. There was a brief moment of silence as the air around the table continued to grow heavier and thicker, as though an unseen force was violently brewing. Suddenly, Tarek's lips began to curl into a smile, and he began to snicker. Mikhail felt his lips follow suit, and the two broke out in laughter. The air around them had lightened, and the pressure dissipated as the laughter continues. Our apologies. Just a brotherly squabble, I assure you, Tarek said with a friendly smile. Though, while you're here, can you please bring me and my brother the house ale? Mikhail straightened and collected himself, getting one last chuckle out of his throat before returning to a more dignified sitting position, his back pressed against the chair as he sat up straight. I would also like a rack of lamb, please, Mikhail followed up. The maiden looked relieved and nodded. Without a word, she turned away and went back to the door behind the bar as the brothers resumed their conversation. So what are you doing here, Mikhail? A colleague at the college told me you were off in Windsor. I was there for about a fortnight. I arrived back this evening. Archmage Corrigan had sent me there in order to look into a site that was reportedly overflowing with banelings. The Archmage thought it'd be a new convergence point. Mikhail replied, lowering his eyes. I take it was a wasted trip, Tarek asked as he moved his notebook to the side of the table. No, there was a convergence point, though it was small and the ether around the area was only slightly higher than usual. I swear, ever since the incident at Melrin, the citizenry have become skittish at even the sight of slightly too much ether, Mikhail scoffed, annoyed. The barmaid returned with 2 flagons, filled to the brim with foam, resting on the top. In one hand, she placed them in front of both of the men. In her other hand was a plate of steaming lamb, decorated with green and orange spices that gave the meal a zesty smell that she placed in front of Mikhail. Mikhail reached into his pockets and took out some dharma. The coins were silver. The texture around the sides had been malformed, and the metal itself was uneven, with some portions being raised and some being lowered. The only feature that was unblemished on every coin was the magnolia imprint. Mikhail was about to put the coins down when Tarek raised his hand, stopping him. Mikhail, please, this is my treat. Tarek turned to the maiden and smiled, taking 4 coins from the pouch on his belt. The maiden maiden bowed her head and took the coins and placed them in her apron before walking away. You realize you overpaid, Mikhail said, picking up his flagon and taking a sip. The ale was warm and sweet, with an aftertaste of pine, no doubt from the barrel it was sitting in, and he could feel the foam getting attached to his mustache. Mikhail put the flagon down on the table and wiped the foam left behind with his sleeve. Tarek nodded and took a sip from his flagon. It's called generosity, Mikhail. You should try it sometime. Brother, I am not going to overpay for a meal, no matter how good it is. Mikhail replied, taking his silver eating knife off his belt and began to cut into the tender lamb. He stabbed a piece and brought it to his mouth and began to chew. The meat was tender and felt as though it was dissolving in his mouth with every bite. He tasted oregano, garlic, and other spices that gave the meat an interesting zest that was even better to taste than smell. He couldn't suppress his grin as he picked up the bone and ate from it directly, foregoing the knife. Once finished, he placed the lamb bone down and began wiping the remaining juices off his lips with the back of his hand. Although I am open to trying new things. Tarek smiled and took a sip of his ale before his eyes lit up. He grabbed his quill and opened his notebook and began writing. Mikhail watched as he wrote a few more sentences, or at least what Tarek called sentences, before he placed his quill back down. And with that, my latest composition is complete, Tarek announced. Now the question is, will anyone bother to listen to it? Mikhail responded snarkily as he picked up another lamb rack. I'm willing to wager you 10 dama right now that I could enchant this entire room with my latest composition, Tarek said confidently. Mikhail didn't even bother to look up at his brother as he placed another finished rack down. Very well, but you are forbidden from announcing your name, status, or using any sort of magic during the performance, he said, still chewing on lamb meat. Well, that's not fair. You're denying the people what could be a fantastic performance and only making it wonderful, Terence said indignantly. Mikhail swallowed his food and took another quick sip of ale. All the non-magical skalds are able to do it. Surely you, one of the noble sons of House Prenka, aren't scared of a challenge, Mikhail responded with a devious grin. Tarek said nothing and got up, taking his lute and book with him as he approached the fireplace. He pulled a stool from one of the nearby tables and sat and began looking through his book. Some of the patrons lifted their head at the sound of moving furniture, but quickly turned their attention back to their drinks or conversation. Mikhail watched his brother. He could see Tarek's eyes scanning the page quickly before closing the book and placing it near his feet. He strummed several chords slowly, his finger only moving to the next after the sound from the previous one had finished. A moment later, a soothing melody bewitched the room, and as every head turned to watch Tarek play, even Mikhail turned away from his food and watched his brother's fingers coerce in a chanting sound from the instrument. Then he began to sing in his bassy voice. My friends, I have for you a tale of men with courage so bold. They fight with might and for the right price, and are of kingdoms of old. I'm sure you've all heard of the Lost Company, knights turned mercenaries from kingdoms of the past that were lost. Tonight I will tell you the tragic tale of one of the men, Yvalt the Shamed. Yvalt hailed from Laurent. None had seen one so strong. He was a lord of might, never ran from a fight, a leader so very loved. One day he left his home to be with a distant love. He was gone for many a day, as his people cried out in pain. When he returned, he found his kingdom had burnt to the ground, his old life gone with the flames, and his heart now full of pain. Yvalt now spends his days fighting to soothe his rage, for the people he lost and his kingdom now gone, all to absolve his disgrace. As soon as Tarek's final note finished, the sound of applause echoed through the room. Though Mikhail tried, he couldn't resist and began to clap as Tarek stood bowing. Tarek was about to leave his stool when suddenly the tavern door burst open, and someone fell through the doorway onto their back. Mikhail stood up as the tavern went silent, all eyes on the newcomer, the person groaning and slowly picking themselves up. Once the figure stood up straight and faced the dining room, Mikhail saw it was a young woman. The young woman dusted off her tan pants and long-sleeved black shirt. She wore a brown belt with a sword attached and black boots that she was kicking the snow off of. She shook her head back and forth, causing her raven locks to bounce. Her body was slim and lean with a feminine hourglass figure. She had a pale complexion with a diamond-shaped face and a sharp nose that gave her a strong profile. But the most intriguing feature being her bright purple eyes. The woman looked familiar, but Mikhail couldn't remember where he had seen her. She moved her eyes quickly from left to right as though she was surveying the room before turning back towards the door and slowly backing away from it as 3 more people had entered the tavern. One was a man, tall and lanky, and had a face like a rat's. Another one was just an average-looking man, the only distinct feature on him being his full red beard and a scar down his right cheek. The final man was shorter than the other 2, but had more muscle than the other 2 put together. Despite the differences in appearance, all of them had the same irritated look on their face, and each had a sword on their belt. They also wore ragged clothes and smelled of salt water. Mikhail could only assume they were sailors. "Gentlemen, I am many things, but a cheat is not one of them," the woman said calmly as she slowly backed away. "Not a cheat? No one can win that many times without cheating," the average man shouted as he drew his cutlass from his belt, and the other 2 men followed. "I only won because you have obvious tells. Look, I didn't take your money, so can't we just forget this ever happened?" the woman responded. "What in Tyrion's name is happening?" the tavern wench who had served Mikhail and Tarek yelled as she appeared from the kitchen door. Mikhail watched as the wench stared at the scene. "Aviana, what in the abyss do you think you're doing starting a fight here?" "Don't worry, Catherine, I'm taking care of it," the young woman replied without taking her eyes off her opponents. Aviana, Mikhail thought to himself. The last time he heard that name, it belonged to a crying, disheveled, homeless little civet girl who had just been berated by the Archmage. That had been years ago, but from what he could remember, the little girl's eyes were dim and hopeless, her face gaunt and her body underfed and sickly. This woman's eyes were determined, focused, her body strong, and her face beautiful. Mikhail turned his attention to Tarek, who was chuckling and strumming his lute. An upbeat dancing song came from the strings, which had caused some of the patrons to become bewildered at what he was doing. The average man charged with his sword, positioned to run Aviana through. Mikhail watched as she gracefully stepped out of the way and drew her sword in one fluid movement and smacked him in the back of the head with her hilt. The man fell to the floor, face first, crying out in pain as the rat-faced man and the short man charged together. Mikhail was intrigued as Aviana bent her back, dodging a swing from the lanky man, only to dodge the shorter man's follow-up with a back handspring. When she landed on her feet, he noticed that her fighting stance was very different from most others he had seen. Her feet continued to move even when standing in one spot, and her body was constantly swaying, appearing to be more akin to a dancer than a swordsman. Every swinger's strike from the men was either dodged or met with a loud clang of her sword meeting theirs. Mikhail noticed that she attempted to dodge the shorter, stronger man's strikes, and at every time their swords collided, her arms would buckle slightly. The 3 had fought their way through an occupied table where the men quartered Aviana. Mikhail saw a smirk on her face as she reached behind her and grabbed the patron's flagon, the top still brimming with foam, and swung it. The liquid flew from the cup into the man's eyes, causing them to scream in pain as they rubbed their faces. The 2 didn't even have the chance to watch her use the table as a springboard and deliver a strong kick to their chest, sending them to falling backwards. As the fight progressed, Mikhail felt the air in the room shift, and 5 copies of Aviana surrounded the 2 men in a circle. The men picked themselves up, their eyes now cleared, and noticed the copies and started to panic. They haphazardly attacked the closest one to them, their blades passing through the copies. As they continued to dance in a circle, all of them had an amused smile on their face. Mikhail's attention now turned to his brother, who was laughing harder, the strings on his lute now possessing a green aura around them. Mikhail couldn't hold back his amusement and laughed at his brother's trickery. Suddenly he noticed that the man Aviana had taken out first was standing and holding a metal tube that was pointing at Tarek. Mikhail's eyes went wide, and he stretched out his right arm, opening his hand and began to focus. In the span of a moment, his hands began to tingle, and felt all the air rush towards his open palm. The air ignited into an inferno that didn't burn his skin as the ball of flame expanded quickly in the air. He gestured his hands forward, and the ball flew into the man's hand. The man screamed and let out the scream the man let out caused Tarek to stop playing as the metal object in his hand began to melt and bubble as the metal caught fire, and he couldn't let go no matter how hard he shook. After a moment, the man passed out from the burning sensation, and the fire had ran up to about his forearm. Then Mikhail heard two loud thuds and turned just in time to watch the two men Aviana was fighting fall into a slump of unconsciousness as well. It didn't take long for the Guardians to arrive. Mikhail assumed they must have been passing by when they heard the man scream. Tarek explained the situation to them, and they accepted it without question and removed the three men. After that, the dining room quieted down, and the other patrons went back to their business. Some were still murmuring about what had just occurred. Aviana was now sitting at their table and talking to Tarek. What was that all about? Tarek asked Aviana. I was playing cards with some sailors, and I just didn't know they were undignified losers. Aviana answered with a laugh. But they said you were cheating. Were you? Mikhail asked. Of course not. They had tells so obvious a blind man could have seen them. I only cheat when they're good, Aviana replied. Tarek and Aviana laughed, leaving Mikhail with a confused look that Tarek noticed. You really don't recognize her, Mikhail? I sent her to meet you. I know that was several years ago, but I didn't think you of all people would forget a commoner on college grounds. Look at me now. I'm an adult now, and still as uncivilized as when we first met. It's a pleasure to see you again, Lord Pranka. Aviana said, standing up and bowing her chest before sitting again. Mikhail's eyes widened. I don't believe you. This cannot be the same child. She doesn't look desperate, hungry, malnourished, or anything like the child you sent to me all those years ago. It's true. Several days after I met you and your brother, I was given a job to work for the Chancellor. I'm still under his employ today, Aviana responded with pride. With a pride that Mikhail did not think she was capable of. But why would you do that? You're a Savet. You have no house, you have no family, you have no standing. Why would someone that important hire you? Mikhail said bluntly. Aviana's eyes darkened slightly at the question. Her cheerful demeanor dropped, making her look much more like the child he had met all those years ago. He gained someone willing to work and someone willing to take on a job no matter how hard, she answered quietly. All right, but where did you learn to fight like that? I doubt anyone in this city would waste their time training a Savet, Mikhail asked. The Chancellor instructed me, and I had to learn some to defend myself, and some of it I figured out on my own, she responded immediately as though she was conditioned to, which was followed by an awkward silence. Well, what brings you by, Aviana? Tarek asked, finally breaking the silence. I heard you were back in town and wanted to hear your newest composition. You always have one whenever you come back to town. Also, this time I'm going to be leaving, so it'll be a while before we see each other again. Leave? Tarek responded confused. The Chancellor is sending me on an assignment to Calic, an island in the Silencia archipelago, and the ship leaves tomorrow. She answered, rubbing her arm. Mikhail noticed that she looked somewhat nervous, but was trying her best to hide it. Well, I already played my newest composition, but if you want, I'll perform it again, Tarek responded, about to grab his lute. Aviana bit her lip and then shook her head disappointed. No, I think these people have had enough excitement for the day. Besides, I don't think Catherine would really appreciate me causing more of a ruckus than I already have. Well, Aviana, next time we meet, I'll make sure to share this one with you, Tarek promised as he extended his hand. Aviana smiled and took it, shaking it and shook it. I'm going to hold you to that, Tarek. Aviana stood up and turned to Mikhail and bowed her head. It was a pleasure to see you again, Lord Pranka, she said politely before leaving the table, walking back into the cold night. As soon as Aviana was gone, Mikhail began to laugh. What's so funny? Tarek asked. It's just, what's that saying? When a skald is around, it means history is being made, Mikhail said, imitating his brother. Did you know making her a messenger would send her down this path? Or she is one of the few Savets I've ever seen to actually make it out of the gutter, let alone make something of herself. Brother, for all I knew, giving that letter to her might have resulted in the entire city being swallowed in a sinkhole, Tarek answered. No, I didn't know that would happen when I gave her the letters for you and the Archmage. All I wanted to do was help someone in need. Mikhail nodded and leaned further into the table. She's a member of the Ravens, isn't she? He asked in a whisper. From what I've heard, she's one of the first outsiders in that organization in generations. She's been trained well. Did you notice her footsteps did not make, even when walking, make very little sound? Tarek asked quietly. I did, but she has a long way to go. I've heard one of their best agents is capable of running without sound. Mikhail began to rub his beard as he became lost in thought. If she's going to Silencia, I take it she's going to be meeting with one of the other organizations, the Albatrosses, I wager. Just what do you think the Chancellor is planning? My guess is she's grooming her to become a master thief. If that's true, I'm willing to wager that she can pull it off, Tarek answered. Oh, that reminds me. Mikhail reached into his pocket and pulled out 10 dharma and placed it on the table. Mikhail looked at the coins for a moment and then his brother. You care to double down, brother? On what? Whether or not she lives up to your expectations, Mikhail answered with a grin. Very well, brother. I'll take up that wager. I have every confidence that she will succeed. Tarek pushed the dharma back to his brother. Tarek then picked up his half-filled flagon and he extended his arm to the middle of the table. A toast, brother, to Aviana's 6th journey and my 20 dharma. I'll drink to the journey, but I just know that win will be mine, Mikhail replied as his flagon hit Tarek's. And that's it.
Very nice.
That was amazing.
What a ride.
Yeah, very interesting indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm loving the commentary in the comments from Hypatia Ravenka Kovalevska Skłodowska.
Yeah.
The hardest
Amazing.
the hardest part of this, to be honest, was the ballad. That was the hardest part, and I had to go through like 4 different iterations before I was able to do it. The other thing is that on a meta level, like seriously, on a meta level, what the brothers were talking about in the end about the Ravens and everything, that would be a shock to the readers because they're a secret organization. So now it's like, well, how do these two know about it? What's really happening here?
And it's also good to hear another voice actor, someone really goes above and beyond the call of duty in that regard.
I try, but right now I'm getting over something, so not as good as it could have been this week.
If I could give some advice to Tarek, though,
Yeah.
take your time with the regular words. Don't force it out. Don't try to get everything out too quickly. Just let the words flow.
That's not bad advice. I just didn't want to take up everyone's time because this was like 10 pages, and I didn't want to take up too much time.
Remind me not to go to that tavern, though.
Oh, actually, that tavern's the nicest in the city. It just so happened that a brawl occurred this time.
Well,
Like,
it wouldn't have taken place at all in the tavern if that wasn't going to happen. Now.
Here's the thing. I've written lore for that tavern, and the thing about that is that tavern it's one that nobles from foreign lands go to because that tavern is one of the oldest in the cities. It has a lot of hospitality, even more than the noble quarter. They've been given gifts from fucking kings of Persia. They have rugs in Middle Ages. That's how much people love that fucking tavern.
Yeah, but my point was, the scene wouldn't have taken place there if the brawl hadn't happened there.
Oh,
Because interesting stuff happened.
yeah, interesting stuff happened. And to be honest, like what she was doing after that card game, she was just ran in there to hide out. She didn't think they would follow her.
Yeah. Poor luck for her, but awesome for
Where's
us
the
because
echo
we got to
coming
see
from?
that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hmm.
Or rather,
Hmm.
I apologize because she fell in. She was trying to run away, but got cornered at the intersection, and then they kind of just threw her in there. And she's like, "Of all the fucking places, you had to pick where I work,
Yeah.
like as a daytime job."
Yeah.
Very nice.
I hate it when that happens.
Do you know how many
I imagine most
Yakuza?
people hate it when that happens.
Do you know how many Yakuza style brawls I had to get in when I was working in a bar? But thank you, I do appreciate it.
Alrighty.
Okay. I'm gonna have to call it an evening too.
Alrighty.
All right, Carl.
See you later, bro. See you later, buddy.
See ya.
Have a riot. Oops. He's out of luck. He'll miss me again.
Oh well.
Alrighty.
I don't know how he'll get over it.
Hmm.
He'll be utterly distraught and without any recourse for life.
His soul will be annihilated. Oh dear. And luckily I am in Firefox, so I can share my screen. At least hopefully I can. So I can bring up the map. Oh, half a moment. Sorry, this just takes a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I'm usually much better at reading than today. Ugh.
Just don't go Rona on us. That's all. No Rona, please.
Ready?
Oh, half a moment. I need to bring this thing down. I need to scroll down on here. There. And
Alrighty.
let me open my document. I click on the window, that's all. And here we are. You can see the map all right?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, let's see. That's okay. They're at the mainland at the moment. Delawapa is where they have just been. That's on the southwest. That kind of bump in the mainland, and then they're going to go down to Eronge, and then they're going to go to the city of Dien. They're going to go further down, and then they're going to go up north to Tharmalon, if you can see all that.
So one thing about the map is it's a little bit cluttered. There's a lot of things that I can't really make out. I think
Can you make out the cities and the city names?
I can make out a few of the city names, but one of the things is there's a lot of close spacing for quite a ways. So it's kind of there's just a lot of stuff really close together. I can vaguely make them out, but in some of the cases they're covered over by each other.
Yeah, maybe there should be a map that's strictly the area covered in the story.
Or just kind of let's it. So are there you could I think that part of it's just there are too many towns.
Yeah, but I mean they're being. Yeah, I mean it's been civilized for a long time. These towns, yeah, they've kind of grown up over the centuries.
Yeah, I think that you could. I think that you could. I think that the main. I think George R. R. Martin doesn't necessarily give every small town out in Principality. He mostly gives the big seats of castles and.
Yeah, these are big. Yeah, these are mostly cities. It's a large area. It's an empire, so it has a lot of cities in it.
Maybe spread them out a little bit. I think that might help.
Yeah, I think the thing. Yeah, maybe the thing to do is just to have like detailed like maps of certain areas, so you don't have to look at all the other stuff.
Yeah, I think that might be a good idea to kind of like have what like small section maps, like if especially like if they're not pertinent to the story yet, I don't know like how much use they are to the reader.
Yeah, maybe small section maps.
Yeah,
Oh,
maybe like have like the major city a map of like the overall empire and just include like the major like capitals of each nation, and then like have smaller maps of each like smaller place. Maybe that might help.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I need to be making a note. I'm sorry. I got a little note of. I've got a little pad for my feedback. Let's see.
Yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
You have maps in your books?
I don't. I have
Oh,
created maps, but I haven't.
That's honestly been my biggest downfall, because the city the first book takes place, and it's been shifting and moving, and I really wish I had nailed it down before I started writing, because it is just a pain in the ass to keep up with.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, here they are. They just gone past De La Wapa. Oh, and this is Margaret and her
Hello?
cousin Barama.
Is
Hello?
this? Sorry, I cut out for a second.
Yes. Margaret and her cousin Barama have just been at the imperial court where they met a creepy emperor who's kind of a perv. Well, more than kind of. Very much a perv. So now they're heading home. They're afraid they're going to have to end up in the. They don't want to end up in the Barusa, which is kind of like a harem, and they're heading home. And Lady Margaret and Barama just got into kind of an incident with a noble because he was being mean to a slave girl, and they went and tried to rescue her. But then, of course, the master happened to be the Duke of the province Sombema, and so he demanded payment for all that, and it just got messy. So asleep or no, the counts and their children spent the night aboard ship. No one had any great desire to stay longer in De La Wapa than was strictly needful. The next day, Pilamar and Gadawada brought some provisions, and the party set out for Eronge, the chief city of Sombema. During the voyage, Margaret and Count Pilamar were constantly being scrolling down here, being importuned by Gaga, a new slave that they got, who kept turning up and offering to help with this and that, and asking questions like, Great One wants scum slave file correspondence? Or Great One friend with Emperor? The other slave, the one who had been rescued from Daraimi's overseer, had at least the merit that she didn't seem always to be prying into her master's affairs. But her gratitude could be a tad overwhelming at times. Her name, it turned out, was something like Thavdath. There were letters in there Margaret couldn't pronounce. And we're scrolling down again. Sorry. Sorry, my computer's getting in a mood again. There were sounds in there Margaret couldn't pronounce, and she was from the Parentes Mountains, whence she had been captured by Sandaranian slavers. She simply would not stop offering to tell Margaret about her, quote, destiny, end quote. The gods have give you greatness, she said. You destiny will be hard but high, and you will shape the empire. Margaret wanted a break from destiny and greatness just then. She just wanted to go home and for things to be as they always had been. When would this voyage end? The answer appeared to be not any time soon. 3 days passed, and the glorious Emperor was only just arriving, that's the ship, was only just arriving in Eronge. The counts went out again in search of provisions, leaving Margaret and Barama on board. Margaret found the view out the ship's window to be quite sufficient, and couldn't wait to be underway again. To her eyes, Eronge was merely a larger, more grandiose, and more Shogunized version of Delawapa. Although it was quite a bit older than Delawapa, the city looked younger, as the Chuggins had done a lot of building and rebuilding, none of which made the aesthetic any of the more palatable to visitors from Oro. There were indeed some older buildings in the native style, but they were in the less fashionable northeast corner of the city, and the visitors did not see any of them. Neither Margaret nor Barama cared much for the ducal palace, a massive granite square whose facade was burnished with silver. It reached 6 stories and had bas-reliefs depicting the putative triumphs of the imperial dynasty above the lintel, whilst below it were depicted the deeds of Daraimi's presumptive, but not terribly likely, ancestors, like the arch-seducer Munchine, none of which meant anything to Margaret. The other buildings in the area were cheaper imitations of the gubernatorial palace, and were all rather much of a muchness. Margaret was getting tired of Sandaran, and if only the new slaves, would leave her alone. She heard the drum beating outside her door and sighed. Have a moment, let me just do this. Who's there? It's Barama, Cousin Margaret. I'm bored. I wish we could get out. Come in. I'm bored too, but I don't need to see any more Sandaranian cities. The only cities I like much are Peje and Chiritaba. Let's play cards. Barama entered the cabin. Let's play battle to the death. Now that we're 12, we're allowed to play. All right. I only know the ladies' version, though. That's all right. It wouldn't be fitting for us to play the men's version. Only males can play that. Barama took out his pack of cards and began shuffling. Your cards are triangles, not ovals. Yes, ovals are out of fashion in Sandaran. And we don't have plants for the 9 suits anymore, but animals. Then what do you do for the animal cards? We have fire, a huncha tree, and a fountain. Sandaranians are weird. They went on playing until the counts returned from shopping. The party spent the night on board ship again and left as soon as they could. They were delayed a few hours by the port officials searching through their ship on the pretext of checking for contraband. Garawada and Pilamar had trouble keeping their tempers while the parvenu cads ransacked their cabins and emptied all their luggage. And it was almost worse when Baba and Gaga officiously offered to repack it for them. When and oh when would this Sawara accursed voyage be at an end? But finally they were able to set sail. After Eronge, the glorious emperor took to the open sea again for 5 days, until it reached Dian, a harbor on the northern coast of Mindar. At least we're leaving Sandaran, thought Margaret. That's almost worth being boat sick. After she'd recovered from the boat sickness, she and Barama resumed playing cards, or read from a book their fathers had ordered them to read. Examples of the evil fates of foolish lords. The counts hoped thereby to instill a little wisdom in their wayward offspring. The Chuggan Emperor shouldn't have killed the prince just for saying he was stupid, said Margaret. That's probably not the lesson our fathers wanted us to learn. I don't care. I wish they would just let us out for 1 hour at least. It looks beautiful out there. Barama shrugged in the Turanian fashion. They went back to reading. After a few minutes, Margaret got bored again and looked out the window. Why does it have to be so beautiful? Would you rather it were ugly? Look how colorful it is. Why did my ancestors leave here? And indeed it was colorful. Diane was near the tropics, and therefore much warmer than Sandaran or Ichalumu. Many colored parrots flew overhead, and in the nearby forest, Margaret saw wild achus, a kind of monotreme, unknown in Ichalumu or Peje, glide from tree to tree. The plants were a rainbow of bright colors: duru trees, related to club moss, tree ferns, tree horsetails, palms, baran trees, a dozen kinds of beech, eucalyptus, oh, there's too many plants in here, azaleas, rainbow violets, proteas, and several species of calendar flowers. A variety of plants and animals fully equal to the imperial menagerie. And this was just the harbor. The jungle gradually thickened towards the west, more trees than Margaret had ever seen in her life. She longed to leave the ship and walk on Mindarite soil, whence her ancestors had migrated to Ichalumu many centuries ago, but knew that it was her own fault she could not. The city, too, seemed familiar after the Sandaranian cities they had been seeing for the last month or so. As she looked out onto the city, Margaret mostly saw round wooden houses in the Mindarite style, and the temples were also of wood. The mayoral palace was a round wooden dome-shaped building, although the Chuggans and Sandaranians had added rectangular extensions of stone, and it was only 3 stories high. Even the Mindarite gubernatorial palace in Horembach, some distance to the east, only had 4 stories, since both the Chuggans and the Sandaranians had aimed at cutting the Mindarites down to size. And the old royal palace of the kings of Mindar lay vacant and partly in ruin. And we're scrolling down again. Counts Pilamar and Garawala stayed in Dien for 3 days. The second day, they went out shopping in the central market. Mindar had few shops, and most merchants had to content themselves with stalls in the marketplace. I'm sorry that Margaret can't leave the ship, said Pilamar. She's never been to Mindar before. I'm not sorry, said Garawada. They need to learn. Of course it's important that she learn her lesson, but it's still sad. I'm going to give her a present. As you wish. I shan't give Varama anything. I'll not reward, but wait. Here's some, scrolling down, here's some achu meat. We shan't find that on the island of Oro. I'd better get some. I'd rather eat parrot. But let's see what gifts I can find. Oh, these look nice. In the end, Pilamar brought Margaret a native flower and a book in Old Mindarite, History of the Kings of Mindar. Margaret would love them. He knew he would have to wait until after their return to give them to her, so Margaret wouldn't think she was being rewarded for her folly. Meanwhile, he also bought a parrot feather dress for Adri, his younger daughter. Their shopping complete, the counts returned to their ship for supper and what sleep they could hope to get aboard this confounded vessel. They were relieved next morning when they finally set sail for Tharmalon across the open sea. The ship arrived in the chief city of Ichalumu at the beginning of the 4th day. As the glorious emperor entered the harbor, Margaret regarded the low and mostly round roofs of the city with a sense of relief. It might not be home, but at least it was Ihalimu. She was still looking at the rocky shore next to the harbor, and the loud and foul-mouthed jaybirds' cries echoed in her ears, drowning out the seagulls, when Gaga arrived at her cabin and said, "Great One Father wishes speak to lady." Margaret quickly put on her least sea-drenched clothes and made her way to Pylamar's cabin, which was near the center and had a crudish saber-toothed tiger's head carved over the lintel. The Count waved her in. "Gaga, you may go. Be so good as to help the crew clean the galley." "Great One want filth slave clean Great One lady quarters?" "No. Thavdoth is already helping there. Help clean the galley." Dismissed. Gaga obeyed with evident reluctance, and it was only when he was certain she was gone that Pylamar spoke again. "Your cousin Barama and your gracious uncle are leaving us, and you are permitted to come with me into the town to see them off. Thavdoth will pack your things, and we shall get off this ship and return to our barge. Be wise and speak only when I have spoken to you. Say nothing about politics until we get home, and even then, say nothing in front of Gaga. Do you understand?" "Yes, Father." "Good. We leave the ship in 2 hours. 2 of their hours are about 1¼ of ours. In the event, it took more than 3 or 4 of their hours to get ready." When they finally disembarked, Margaret was so happy to be on land again in her native Ihalimu that she would have done anything her father said. Count Pylamar led the way, Garawada the rear. The slaves Thavbath, Baba, and Gaga pulled the luggage on small wheelbarrows until such time as their masters were able to rent buffaloes. Margaret rejoiced to see the old beechwood houses, and even the newer stone ones, most of which were still in the round style she was used to. None of it seemed quite so impressive as during her first visit, but by the same token it seemed almost homelike compared to Tena, the capital, or Delawapa. At least that creepy emperor wouldn't get her here. Tharmalon no longer seemed quite so crowded as it had the first time, either. Barama, too, was glad to be on land, and full of Margaret as she explained all the sights. "Look, Barama, that monument marks the place where the Mindarite leaders Shelnar and his wife Malzeril landed. Why are most of the houses round? That's how we do it in Ihalimu. Don't you remember the peasants' houses on our estates? Those ones over there are pyramids." Barama pointed at some of the houses of the older aristocracy. "They say houses in Terrania are like that too." "Do you see the ones on stilts?" "Yes, we have those in Sandaran too. There's the great Ingra. The holy Brahm is buried there. That wall reminds me of the one in Peje." "Yes, it's the governor's palace where the sacred palms grow. They have to be protected, which is why they put up the wall," explained Pylamar before Margaret could say anything rash. "It's a nice city," said Barama. "I like the houses and temples. I like the way houses are different shapes. We only have Sandaranian and Akarian styles in Peje." "It's nice enough here as cities go," agreed Margaret. "Father, can we stay here a bit?" "I'm afraid not," said Garawada. It is time to take our leave and return to the ship. We have much to do at home." "Farewell, noble brother-in-law," said Pylamar, "and to your fair son, and to you and yours. Suhu Nyaja Mishtaka Chanja. Anjamu Angara. Farewell, gracious uncle. Maybe we'll meet again sometime, cousin Barama." "I hope so. Give the Lady Adri her present. I will. After they had made their final bows and curtsies, Count Garawada, and Barama continued on their way to Peje aboard the Glorious Emperor. Meanwhile, Margaret and... Scrolling down, pardon me. And now it's not responding. This will be a couple of seconds, sorry.
Okay, no worries.
Okay, here we go. It finally did its thing. Margaret and her father returned to the comital barge, Pile a Fershen, and began having their luggage loaded onto the boat. But before they could resume their journey, they received an urgent invitation to visit the governor Bruno Bemwengura again and attend a banquet. Margaret found this somewhat ominous. She had forgotten how creepy the governor was. Granted that after Ekwekwe, the emperor, he seemed almost a perfect gentleman by comparison. In any case, she knew jolly well that there was no help for it, so didn't utter a syllable of protest when her father sent a message via Gaga accepting the invitation with fulsome protestations of gratitude. That evening they hired a rickshaw. Margaret hated rickshaws, and made their way to the gubernatorial palace. Let's see. Immediately upon their arrival, the governor ostentatiously gave Margaret a beautiful gown bedight with emeralds, the stone of Ihalimu, amid a barrage of extremely flowery compliments. He was also rather more polite to Pilamar than usual. Margaret was at something of a loss as to how to respond, but managed somehow to reach into her store of polite expressions. In this beautiful gift, Great One graces me with far more grace than this lowly servant deserves. My lady's beauty far exceeds it, as the beauty of the pansy exceeds that of a common toadstool, nay, as the sun surpasses the glowworm. Great One flatters this lowly servant. On the contrary, I insult my lady in comparing her to the sun, for is nothing before her splendor, but would that her luminary might shine here forever. Great One has put himself to far more expense than this lowly servant is worth. Margaret began to wonder how much more of this she would have to listen to before they could attend the stupid banquet and get it over with. Coming up with polite ripostes was so hard. This were nothing if I could possess my lady's beauty. Perhaps Bruno too was getting tired of polite badinage and wanted to get to the point? As Margaret curtsied for the umpteenth time, the Count came to her rescue by launching to a lengthy survey of Kalaman flora and fauna. He was in the middle of a disquisition on ottering when they were given a reprieve by the steward's announcement that the banquet was ready. During the banquet, the governor kept trying to broach the subject of marriage, which her father parried with inanities about the weather. Margaret wasn't very hungry, but had to give at least the appearance of enjoying the repast, while saying as little as possible. Please, Ishtaka, let this end. Meanwhile, finally, the banquet did end, and Margaret's spirits rose as the ordeal, as she thought, drew towards its conclusion. But Barun was far from being finished with her, and began reciting a poem in Turanian that he had his poet compose in Margaret's honor. Since both Pilamar and Margaret had obstinately refused to understand the very broad hints that the governor kept making, he began making protestations of undying love. Your beauty, your charms, your soul have enamored me, he cried. It was a sticky situation, and Margaret's tact, such as it was sorely tried. My lands have enamored you, she was tempted to say. Great One honors this lowly servant, but I am far too young, she said instead, trying to be as ladylike as possible, and, yet again, curtsying very low in the Turanian manner. Nonsense, said Bruno. At court, younger women than you are married, or are honored to join the Barusa all the time. We Kalaman girls are bashful and demure. We are unaccustomed to being courted, said Margaret. I beg Great One to grant me some time to speak to my father and to pray to Rue for guidance. By the customs of my people, she must wait until she is 18 and has completed her second decade, said Pylamar. Then she may choose her husband. Terania has a base 9 number system, and a decade lasts 9 years. This custom had spread to Sandaran and Ihalamu, even though their languages have a base 10 system. And, let's see, a base 10 system. A charming custom, said Burunu, with what he doubtless meant to be an amiable smile, but looked more like a cross between a grimace and a sneer. May the wisdom of Izaharum guide her choice. They spoke no more of it, and the Count and Margaret paid their compliments and left. But the conversation was not forgotten. And that's it.
Kind of a slower pace with this one.
Yeah.
One thing I kind of was wondering was kind of like, so this is kind of like a diffusing of tension, I guess. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess. What?
So I guess like what was like the purpose? Was this
What was
to
the point of
introduce...
What was the point of all that stuff?
Well, I'm just asking, like, what are you trying to achieve with it? What's like like what was it to introduce this like hanger-on sycophant type guy? And for later on in the story, or what was like?
Bruno, the Bruno bit at the end. He definitely that part at the end will definitely have repercussions later on. So he, at least, there's a point to him at least. I mean, the only part that might drag a bit might be the bit which is kind of like a travelogue, where they're traveling through, they're going through all these towns, because they had to. Unfortunately, I found when I was rewriting this chapter, I was rewriting it in light of the fact that the currents in the northern hemisphere, they go clockwise. So because before I just had them go back, so I didn't have to go through all these extra places. But then when I was rewriting, it goes because it goes clockwise. They couldn't go back the same way, so they had to go through these other cities and places instead. And so of course I had to say something about they arrived at blah blah. I think those bits might be a little too long though.
Well, I'm just kind of wondering, like, what kind of just based on like what you're trying to do, like how I was kind of trying to figure out, like, how is this furthering the story, was kind of my question while I was listening.
Okay, Baruno. The bit at the end, yeah, because basically, it's just they're traveling home, so it doesn't. So the bits that directly further the story are Gaga. The slave Gaga is creepy, so that's one thing to take back from it. And the other is Baruno is kind of a creep too, but you noticed that already. He's the governor. So those are the key bits, and the rest is kind of world building ish stuff.
Okay. I like where I'm interested to kind of like see like
what the final result will be.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the final result will be, because it's interesting to like examine but the one thing that I kind of like, I think that one thing. So is it kind of? I think I would kind of like a better idea of like what the tension is kind of like the thing that I'd like to see a little bit more.
Oh yeah.
Like what's driving the scene, or like what kind of, like, now that we've had the conflict introduced, like I'm assuming it's basically going to be a game of keep away with the girls trying to keep away from the Emperor. Is that going to be the plot of the book?
Not quite.
Okay, that'll be okay. That's okay. That's good. You're kind of, that might be interesting. Okay, so what's like? Okay, so
What is the plot of the book?
so is this
You
like
want spoiler?
well, I guess like, so for how much? So for how much is like the game of keep away? Since it seems like right now the tension is they're playing a game of keep away, trying to like make sure that like the Emperor doesn't get them. Like that's what it seems like to me. Is that a correct assumption, or is that not quite right?
Yes, but I mean, I'm not sure how much. If you people, how much in the way of spoilers you people want?
Well,
There's also the fact that the Emperor doesn't like the fact that they've been taken away, and that's annoyed him. And he's what's the word I'm looking for? He's an absolute monarch, so he can
he's a
do all sorts of things.
Dictatorial despot.
Yes, even though he's also kind of incompetent, because he's like basically he eats and couples and does drugs, and that's what he does all day. But that doesn't mean he can't order things to be done that would might make things happen. I'm trying to avoid giving you spoilers.
Oh no, you're totally fine. It's just like based on like what we've given so far. It's like this section of the book. It seems like the driving tension is the fact that like he got denied his toys.
Yes, and that he doesn't like that. He doesn't like
I
that
imagine.
one bit.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm kind of like, okay, so I think like there kind of needs to be, I think like at least with this, like now that we've had like been introduced, we get like a sense of what, at least like what the initial conflict is. I'm something I'd like is kind of a little bit more tension, seeing as like now they've made an enemy of the Emperor. It kind of seems a little bit languid for something that seems very high tension. Is that what you're going for, or is that or is that your intention, or what's what do you think?
I think
that bit of feedback.
There should be more. There should definitely be more. Yeah. Because I mean that's they're heading home, but they're under a cloud. Even the title of the chapter is "Journey Under a Cloud." I think there was more tension before I rewrote the chapter to fix it because of the whole currents thing. And now, but in the course of adding these, having them go to these places because of the currents, the tension has gone down, I'm afraid. So.
Well, it's totally fine. I guess one thing that I guess could be like maybe just like there's like, despite being away from the Emperor, a pall seemed to lay over the crew. Or like put in like little references like that, and little conversations here and there that kind of like say that they're not out of the woods yet, because like right now there's kind of a sense of they're out of the woods, it's going to be fine right now.
Yeah, and there's also the fact that Gaga, and I can tell you this is not a spoiler, Gaga is a spy. She's there to be a spy. That's the slave named Gaga is there to be a spy. So that needs to be. I mean, I refer to it because she keeps being, in a sense, because she keeps asking impertinent questions of people, But I think that needs to be, maybe that needs to be developed, because that's something that could contribute to tension.
Yeah. Yeah, there's kind of an element. Yeah, I was kind of just like, those were kind of just my feedback. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Alrighty.
What the?
I'm just looking at general conversation. Okay, that's funny.
Which bit? I missed it.
So it's in the general conversation.
I'm looking at that. Geography is so hard. I'm sorry.
Well,
Are the white parts water? Is that what you're talking about?
No, the general conversation in the Discord.
Oh, in Discord.
Neph sees time and she's squeed, and I just find the word squee hilarious for some reason.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought you were talking about the chat when you said general conversation.
I
thought
call
you were
him
talking
Time because he is the hero of time.
Yeah.
That's Navi.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So, okay. So, alrighty.
Yep, sorry to take so long with that.
Yeah. So, I've been editing this a little bit. So,
Wait,
for
done.
done. What?
Are we getting dragons today?
Yeah, we're getting Dragon Blaster.
Yay!
Uh-oh.
Okay. To the 6 or 7 people in the Dragon Blaster fandom, if it can be called. I'm just like, of all of the things that I've done that I've put infinitely more work into, this is the one you people have latched onto. That's just hilarious to me.
What's the name?
The name. Come on, man. It's the name.
I mean, you shouldn't have named it Dragon Blasters if you didn't want people to want to hear it. You should have named it something boring like
Rise of the Archfiends. Rise of the Archfiends was the original title.
See that's boring. I like Dragon Blaster.
I still want to read that.
Yeah, that still sounds cool. You should.
Yeah.
You should have called it Moron Teens Do Stuff. That's what you should have called it. So we wouldn't want to hear that.
No, just call it what it is. Animorphs.
We have a cult within a car called the Dragon Quest. It's not well, I guess it kind of is anime. I actually didn't know that most anime existed when I was 16. The only anime I was aware of was Inuyasha.
You were only
You didn't know Dragon Ball existed. That's kind of
didn't know Dragon Ball existed. I mean, Inuyasha is very good quality, so I can't fault you for only knowing about it. But there are a whole lot that are better, I suppose.
Yeah, anime was already big back then.
Yeah, way big.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so this book is not dramatic. At least this part is not meant to be really dramatic at all. This is meant to be funny. You can unmute. I don't mind. I like hearing, like, if it's funny. Like, I like hearing the reaction. That's totally fine. It's not distracting to me. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, yeah.
I watched, the extent of my Yu-Gi-Oh fandom was Inuyasha and Yu-Gi-Oh at that point in time.
Well, I hadn't heard of very many
Inuyasha and Yu-Gi-Oh
either.
only.
Very, very different shows. I pray for the soul.
Let's see, by the time I was 17, I'd already watched Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT. Inuyasha is definitely one of them. Yu-Gi-Oh, yes. Pokemon. I was kind of getting out of Pokemon. But yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I was
And
17,
a whole lot of Gundam.
Uh-huh.
and when I was 17, anime was totally unknown outside of
It's
Japan and maybe Korea and
it's
places.
a
So
it's a
Well,
it's a
you're a lot
niche.
older, so
It was
Yeah.
it was a niche thing for weirdos and weebs.
yeah,
for
And now
weirdos, weebs, and nerds, which yes, I am a nerd.
we're all nerds here. I'm
yeah,
less of
we're
an
all
anime
nerds. Just
nerd.
embrace it.
Yeah, I think it's just like I opened a can of worms. I was like Dragon Blaster, and then and in a Discord that's like what 70% weebs.
Yeah, it's frightening.
My first
Yeah.
anime. My
Yep,
first
Digimon
anime was
too.
my first anime was Sailor Moon on at 5 in the morning on Cartoon Network that I watched because I couldn't sleep.
Sailor Moon, seriously. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll read the first chapter. So I'll just read the first chapter. Hopefully this is good. I feel free to lambast me if it's bad. I admit that this is like something that really needs some work, and that's why I'm just like daunted by the prospect of doing it because the prose needs a lot of updating even after I've edited it. Okay. So, the night sky, which pitched black, but the black dragon could see perfectly as he calmly glided over Chicago. Thoughts of his family floated through his mind. His mom and dad were probably extremely worried about him. Everybody knew he was probably wondering where he was. He had to get back home. His thoughts were cut short by something slamming into his back at terminal velocity. Wait. Wrong place. Sorry, readers. This is the omniscient narrator. I seem to have gotten ahead of myself. All of these events need a great deal of background, but first I need to introduce one of the subjects of this narrative.
Is this part of the story?
Yes, this is actually part of the book.
You mean that wasn't you? That wasn't you.
No.
That wasn't the forward.
No, that wasn't a forward. That's actually me. That's actually like within the writing. I just thought yeah, like his name is Damian Willard, a resident of Rapid City, South Dakota. He is the classical archetypal nerd, red hair, flat echoes, glasses, and skinny build, braces the whole package. And yes, his parents are big fan of The Omen, so that hasn't helped. Along with the side order of bullying sessions for the football team, disinterested passing over from the cheerleading squad, sorely barely any friends, the works. Eric's a few other people come into play, a football player and his girlfriend, a tech whiz, Damien's kind of cat, Eddie Little Sister Michelle, stuff like that. But that's not important at this time, so back to the right place in the narrative. Action. Water streaming down his face, Damian Willard came out of the bathroom after his second swirly that day when his friend Mandy came up to him looking worried. Mandy was his only real friend. Apart from her, he only had video game friends. But as it was, she was his only other friend apart from one in his previous school, a guy by the name of Mark. Kept in touch, but it was mostly through phone call and certain video games. Manny was his friend mostly because they had recognized kindred spirits in one another. Dang, that paragraph was bad. Oh well. I need to edit that. So many use of the word friend. Damien had been the new kid. Mandy was the ignored outcast from society. She was also more cruelly teased than he was. Toilet dunking only lasted as long as your hair was wet. Public insults, on the other hand, that lasted a long time. Actually, a lifetime. Or at least until you got the hell out of high school. Honestly, Mandy didn't deserve any of what she got. But then again, she was not someone that would be remarked upon. Compared to the other girls, she was probably average. Her dirty blonde hair was perpetually messy. She had a few freckles, and she was a nerd. And so she was picked on. In fact, Damon had fit in people she had befriended join some of the more popular sports teams, and then treated her with even more contempt than their fellows. I heard that she started Then she got a good look at his water-stained red hair. Oh, she said weakly. Damien cringed. It was embarrassing enough that the football team had to dunk him for a record amount of times, but now he could probably barely get dry. The only thing that could have been worse was if what it would have been if it was unflushed. That would have been unconscionable cruelty. Why is it always me? He asked the air, using his jacket as a towel with not much success. Why? It's not like I'm the only nerd in this stupid damn school. Mandy shook her head in commiseration and took a paper towel out of her possibles bag. She was never without that bag, and it contained everything she could need from a bloody nose to a broken leg. Hard dryling, eyeing her toileted friend off. Things will get better, she said as she rubbed the paper towel furiously through his hair. Damien's somewhat uninformed assumption was that he was a bully because of the way he looked. Red hair, freckles, skinny to the point of near emaciation, and, of course, thick glasses. In short, he looked like the prototypical geek. Muttering under his breath, Damien pulled his extra set of clothes out of his locker. He had decided after the first few times he'd been greeted with the unpleasant side of his locker being broken into, to put a security system onto his locker. Just his luck, or lack thereof, to be stuck in the one school in the state that actually had some actually intelligent jerks. Or at least jerks who were creative in their torment of him. The lock was quite simple. All you had to do was say a certain word, then put a video game chip into the lock, and it would open. Damon enjoyed video games and was very skilled with beating them. It was also his main form of entertainment. So, the other friends besides Mandy were just character friends he'd met in multiplayer games. After multiple painful experiences, Damon was quite versed in how to evade his tormentors after only a few weeks in Rapid City. All he had to do was take a route home twice, and the usual tormentors would be waiting to intercept him. So he took one route twice, then another the same number, then another route the second time. The jerks were only of slightly above average intelligence. Damien was lost in thoughts of how he would prank the football team, put poison ivy in their gym clothes or something equally cruel. But eventually something fluttering at the edge of a sewer grate caught his attention. Interested, he stooped down and picked it up. It was a coupon. A video game store coupon. Damien grinned and punched the air. He couldn't believe his luck. It was worth one free game in a new game shop. It's called Blackjack Entertainment. Never heard of it. It was a grand and opening or something. Sorry, if you've forgotten, this is your omnipotent narrator. I just want to insert commentary on young people here. This, as you know, dear readers, is one of the troubles. They find something and they keep it, never thinking of the fact that it might belong to someone else. What is this world coming to? Anyway, here's a quick thing about this world that I'm going to clue in a little bit before the characters. Yes, this is a big coincidence that he finds a coupon, and this is kind of the catalyst for the plot, so please pay attention.
Jeez.
Pardon me. Pardon me. Pardon me.
My God, man.
Sorry.
You're fine.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Is this the reaction you wanted?
Your narration is absolutely hilarious.
Please pay attention to these characters. This character, by the way, this character will die in the end. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Lord Commander. So done, chap. I beg your pardon.
No, it's fine. I'm glad that you're laughing. That's the this is basically the omniscient narrator's a dick. And he'll sometimes insert himself just because he wants to.
Oh no, that's fine. That just makes it funnier.
That's what I would do.
Yeah. Damien looked at the address and walked a few blocks out of his way to get to the store. It was the plastic gesture's face that convinced him he was in the right place. Otherwise, it was a relatively normal video game store. Lots of life-size video game posters were spread across the store, mostly of characters, some of video game covers. Video games lined the shelves, and several computers with which several people were exclaiming over new games. What can I help you with, sir? Asked an anxious voice from behind the counter. Damien jumped and came down in a karate stance. He had never taken any lessons, but he had seen movies and it didn't look that hard.
Oh my god.
What didn't look that hard? What didn't look that hard? I'm sorry.
Martial arts. I'm sorry, no. Martial arts are actually very hard.
You mean I can't just learn like right now? Kind of like
It takes a lot of practice to be able to do it.
I can't just wing it.
No, you can't.
Oh, mind
You
blown.
have to learn how to make a fist before you can punch anything. Because if you make a fist wrong, you might break your thumb.
Oh, that explains it.
Yeah. I definitely need to edit this. This is This is why I'm giving feedback.
I don't know.
It's like you had taken it. Yeah, it's like he came down in a karate stance. He had never taken any lessons, but he had seen movies, and it didn't look that hard.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I've had lessons. I never got very far. It's a very active sport.
Yeah, it is very. Yeah, speaking of somebody who took Taekwondo and Gumdo as a kid, like I am definitely like just playing into the fact that this is a geek.
Yeah. I took karate when I was younger. I never got very far. Never.
Yeah.
I got orange belt with a couple of stripes, but
I can make dramatic motions with my hands.
Yeah, we can do that. That's not hard, but actually doing anything with it is.
I could do the Johnny Bravo thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The voice came from a rather fat, neck-bearded man with dark hair as oily as his voice, incongruously spidery hands, tapping out a percussive beat on a laptop computer. What can I help you with? He asked. I got this coupon. Damien began uneasily, then cut off as he saw the pleased look on the other man's face. It wasn't just pleased. It was hungry. No, ravenous. Now Damien was feeling uncomfortable. He had still not taken himself out of his upbeat karate stance. May I make a suggestion, young sir? The guy said, still smiling. It looked like he was as if he were in pain. The smile was so wide. Took a random video game off the shelf and handed it to Damien. I believe you would enjoy this, he said. It was Small World, the digital board game.
Yeah.
Damien had been saving up to buy it, but this guy had made Damien feel like a small bird being eyed by a full-grown king cobra. No, he said quite confidently. The man was not in the least put off. Quite the contrary, he seemed quite as pleased as the figurative cobra eyeing the figurative bird. Then this one, he asked, handing another game for Damien to examine. No. The man looked a little annoyed. After a few minutes of the game, Damien got so irritated he just wanted to get out. He looked around and then, completely at random, plucked a game off the shelf. I'll take this one, he said confidently. Then he saw the cover. It was of a dark, lightning-streaked sky. On the ground was a line of dragons in cybernetic armor against what looked like a line of robots. The title was Dragon Blaster. The man's face blanched slightly. Oh, you don't want that, he said, reaching out to take it away. Is it not for sale? Damien asked, moving backward and clutching the game protectively. Yes, it is for sale. Good, because that's what I want, Damien said, cutting the man off. The man's obvious hesitance convinced him of the game's worth. If the clerk didn't want to buy it, well, that was weird. Damien had never heard the game anyway, so it could be fun. And if it wasn't, he could just return it or something. He put the case down on the counter and watched the satisfaction as the disgruntled-looking attendant checked the game out. Damien felt satisfied as he carried his new acquisition home. Back in the store, the attendant's expression of feigned disgruntlement vanished, replaced by a self-satisfied grin as he watched the young man walk down the street. His task was done. As the attendant's laugh faded from the street, the store vanished along with it.
Oh,
boy.
Wow.
Awesome.
Whoa, talk about sinister. Manipulating a poor kid into taking a video game? The dirty creep. Oh, and don't get me started on the store vanishing. Creepier and creepier. If you want me to stop, I will. No? Let's skip the boring walk home where Damien fantasizes about playing his new game for the first time, blah, blah, blah. And now we get out to the part where he walks through his front door. Enjoy.
Is the blah 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 part of the story?
Yes,
Yes.
that is.
Yeah.
I love your narrator. Your narrator is wonderful.
Yeah, this. Yeah, that narrator is brilliant.
Yeah, your narrator is the best part, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to put in more in there.
I'm getting punchy too.
Yeah. Let's see how long. Oh, I can do the next part. Hi, Mom. Damien called as he came through the door. His sister Michelle smirked at him as he came in. Hey, Squirt, she said, ruffling his hair. She was a year younger than he was, but she was much more fit than him. Her hair was quite short, only brushing her ears. She always called him Squirt, she always called him Squirt since she surpassed him in height a few years ago, and she never let him forget that he was shorter than her. All in all, considering that he wasn't much for working on and that she was an inch tall, over an inch, several inches taller than he was, it was most likely she could pin him without breaking a sweat. I got a new game, he said, taking it out of the bag and showing it to her. Her eyes bugged. No way, she said, grabbing the game and staring at it. It looks so fun. David sighed and considered his options. He would have liked to play alone, but Michelle seemed interested in this, and she could probably sneak it away from him without any difficulty if she really wanted to. What if you and I plug it in right now? He suggested. The player is set up, so we can put the game through its paces together. Michelle's eyes gleamed as if her birthday had come early. I like it, he said, going downstairs to the game area. After days of bickering, their dad had put his foot down and declared the basement as the designated game space. No, just leave the TV and game console there, and if anyone complained, the gaming privileges were taken away for a week. Very, very effective. Michelle must have wanted to play the game very desperately because she allowed him to take the comfy chair. She did most of the sitting up, which was actually quite difficult. Once they were done, Damien grabbed his controller. Let's do this, he said, returning his sister's grin as she picked up her own controller. The game went automatically to where you had to make a choice between a line of colors. Michelle's controller immediately picked orange. Damien picked the black. The next thing was creating an avatar. Damien quickly named it Phantom, then gave him black hair with dark red streaks, no glasses, pale complexion, and dark clothes. Michelle's avatar was named Pyra, dark hair, tall, sunglasses with a slightly lighter coloring that Damien had chosen. Then they chose what design of dragon they wanted to be. Damien gave the black dragon a large strength ratio with an extendable arm with two retractable claws on the back of the hand and a helmet-like head. His sister chose orange. No surprise there, which gave her speed and fire breath, her favorite aesthetics regardless of game, be it Wii Sports or whatever Star Wars game they played. After that, it was level 1, a long hall with a forest of pillars stretching out an undefinable length. Michelle's orange dragon was behind Damien's black. He did not understand why, but the game seemed to be directing him more than he was maneuvering through it. Something came out of the shadows, a menacing silver robot. Damien felt his fingers move of their own accord, punching A, B, then right. Then his dragon raised his hand and green fire shot from each finger before splitting into dozens of bolts. Michelle's jaw dropped as the robot exploded. How'd you do that? She asked, dumbstruck. Damien shook his head. I don't know. I just pressed A, B, then right, he said, pushing the buttons as he said them. The dragon's hand came up again and fired the bolts again into the wall. Cool, Michelle said approvingly. Damien watched as more robots came out of the columns. Michelle's demon attacked with double hand lasers. Then she pressed A, B, C in quick succession. Her dragon's mouth opened. A line of magma shot from its mouth and exploded outward. Cool, Damien repeated. It was the few hours before dinner passed in blissful, uncomplicated gaming. And and then ended if their mom calling them up for dinner. Damn it, Michelle muttered so their mom didn't hear before yelling, "We're coming, Mom!" As they came over.
Yeah, I understand that.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'd get lost in a book, not so much video gaming, but yeah, being interrupted in the middle of doing something you're absolutely immersed in is not fun.
Mhm. As they came over, their mom glided over them and gave them each a kiss on the cheek. Mom had been a dancer on the stage, but now she had gone slightly deceived with graying hair and wrinkles around the corner of her eyes. Her grace had never diminished, however. Their dad had been an actor in several productions with her, and eventually they had dated and then tied the knot. Mostly over watching reruns of The Omen on late night television. Dad was behind the kitchen counter, sneaking a few spoonfuls of chocolate pudding, pudding from the bowl that had a "no early eating" in as large a font as their mother could fit on a 4-inch square-inch post-it note. Damien and Michelle deliberately ignored their dad's pudding burglary. They had an unspoken agreement with their dad. If they had said it, their mom would have gotten wind of it and put a stop up to it. He looked away when they sneaked downstairs to play their newest video games in the middle of the night, and they did not say a thing to their mother when he stole an early spoonful of dessert.
I
This
wish
time,
I
Mother.
could have had that kind of agreement with my dad.
This time, Mom was behind him. "I think not," she said, grabbing the bowl away from him. "Not until after you eat your broccoli."
Oh my god!
Oh. That reminds me of the day I couldn't have dessert until I ate all my dinner, and it was this horrible egg stuff. Oh God!
Even after 17 years, their mother had never lost the effortless grace of the inborn dancer. Their dad had retained his mellifluous voice, but not much else. He had a saggy belly, a wispy beard over his pudgy face. The dinner consisted of rice, broccoli, green beans, and hamburger. Michelle played with hers before eating it, but Damien ate hungry. "I heard you got a new game today, Damien," Mother said, tone somewhat interested. What little interest was feigned, but she always expressed interest in whatever her children was interested in. "I did," Damien said, grinning from ear to ear. "Well, what's it about?" she encouraged. Damien thought for a moment. "It's about an ongoing war between the Order of Light, an offshoot of the Knights Templar, and a group of dragons, and you get to pick one and customize it. So basically, you're working through various locations of the U.S. trying to hold up the Order of Light." "Interesting," she said. "Do you like it, Michelle?" "Yeah, I did," she said, trying to hide her broccoli in her pocket. "It was really fun."
Oh my!
Oh, ew.
Damien put his hand to the table, and she put the broccoli into his hand. In exchange, he gave her some of his green beans. Michelle liked green beans, and he liked broccoli, so it worked out. I think that'll call it.
My god!
Oh god, that was
I
fun.
had 90s overload.
But you stopped at such a dramatic place, though.
Yeah, with a swirly. Man, I haven't seen
Yeah,
that
they
since
need a
Power
dog.
Rangers.
I want to find out how the ball player turned out.
That was fun. That was so much fun.
That was, you know what? That was worth the wait.
Yes, it was.
I did do a little section later on, and I'll probably do the next part. I'll do the next chapter next time. But yeah, I guess I could read a little bit more. There's not much there, I guess, but I I guess I could read the next chapter. Well, it's not very long. Like it's only like a page or something.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Something. Like, this part's kind of funny. After dinner, they were off to bed, and at 1 a.m, they woke up and beat level 2. It was harder than and the first level. So as far as doing a tutorial was easier than beating the top boss at level 10 was on most normal games, which was to say it was pretty dang hard. After 2 hours of playing the game, they went back to bed for another 3 hours. Then their mother shook them out of bed. It took 20 minutes to rouse Michelle from her nearly catatonic stupor. Dino was out of bed, yawning slightly as he put on his clothes. Once he selected his choice of clothes for the day, he went into the bathroom to take a quick shower. He did not look in the mirror until after he got out of the shower. When he did, his blood-curdling scream brought his mother and dad to the bathroom, both yelling to know who was getting killed.
Oh my god, I love this already so much.
We always used to wonder that when I was growing up.
Yeah, his freckles were gone, and several black streaks were in his otherwise red hair. What happened? His mom asked, breathless. Is someone dead? No, Damien squeaked. I lost some of my face while I was asleep.
I bet Michelle has the same problem.
Don't be ridiculous, honey, his mom said. Then she saw his freckles were gone and more streaks of black were in his hair. Her mouth almost reached the floor. His father looked utterly dumbstruck. Damien, he said about as delicate as a freight train. How the hell did you get surgery in the middle of the fracking night? David gave his father a look. I think that hair dye could change my hair fine, he said. And no, I did not get freaking surgery in the middle of the night.
Oh my god, this is wonderful.
At that moment, Michelle dashed to the door. Did you do this? She shrieked at David, holding her hair in one hand and shaking it at him. She cut out of when she saw his face. What the hell happened to you? She asked. Temporarily forgetting her accusation in abject shock, Damien goggled at her. She thought he was to blame? Keep the calm down in his bed. Then he took a closer look at her sister. Parts of her hair had turned auburn, and her freckles were already gone. Her hair had also grown past her shoulders, and her normally pale skin was infinitesimally darkening to olive. Their parents stared at them. Then something hit Damien like a 2-ton wrecking ball. He could see perfectly. Normally his eyesight was so bad that he could not see anything smaller than a billboard clearly without his glasses. What the hell is going on? Michelle's shriek could have been audible at 10 miles. 1, no swearing. Mom swatted Michelle's arm. I think you should go back to bed, Mom decided, and stay here until we can call a doctor.
The doctor's not gonna help, lady.
No, it's the 90s. I'm pretty sure a doctor will help.
I called it though.
Not for something like this.
No! Damien and Michelle objected loudly and simultaneously. I'm having a test, and if I don't come, Mr. Kern will fail me, and I'll get kicked off the track team, Michelle explained. Miss Marion will have apoplexy if I don't come, Damien put in quickly. If I don't, she'll either assume I've been kidnapped, mortally ill, or being held hostage by my parents.
What the?
And I believe it, too. That last bit sounds credible.
Yeah.
Mom gave Dad a look, with their usual method of communicating without communicating. All right, Mom conceded, but if anything weird happens, you come straight home. Deal. The reply was followed by the two siblings running to their rooms, snatching up their school bags and leaving to catch the bus. Okay, Damien said once they were seated in the back road. How did it happen? Michelle shook her head frantically. I don't know, she whispered. I really don't know. Your hair has changed color, he remarked. indicating a formerly blonde strand that had turned auburn.
You upset.
Blanching, she grabbed a length of dirty blonde hair and and held it in front of her. Her expression horrified. As they watched, completely shocked, the hair turned auburn right there and then. This happened because you got that damn game, Michelle said, looking accusingly at Damien.
You must have
She
read ahead.
hit it on the head. Oh my god. And she doesn't even realize that she's right.
She must have read ahead. That's what happened. She read ahead in the book.
More 90s. Yeah.
My game, I hate heroic
Yeah.
color.
Yeah. Damien was as frightened as she was, maybe more, but her accusing him wasn't a front. I have no clue what happened, he asked, but if that game is causing it, I'll take it back to the store. To his surprise, Michelle shook her head vehemently. No, we will find out by beating the game, and maybe we'll find out what the deal is with this. She imbued the word.
The smart thing would have been to look for the store to take the game back, but no, she
She
Hey,
imbued the word.
wait, hold on. Doesn't he know the store disappeared? Didn't he comment on
No.
that?
No,
That's
it was the narrator that commented.
Oh,
on
okay.
that.
Okay. My mistake.
But when she was reading ahead, she should have read that bit first.
She imbued the word with a word of rolled of disgust and shook her new long auburn hair out. Damien stared at her. Your logic isn't seeming like logic to me. He shook his head. Maybe if we beat the game, it'll go back to normal. Michelle shrugged. That's how it wasn't.
Right. No, I doubt it. That won't work.
That's genre unsavvy.
Yeah, that's not very genre savvy of her.
Actually, speaking, that's how it was in Jumanji and Zathura.
You're right. They didn't stop playing.
That
is kind of genre savvy, but this is a different genre. So this is more genre blindness.
Yeah.
I think the trophy.
Blindness is good.
That was a movie from the 90s, and it's often unnoticed sequel. Damien gave her an askance look. She punched him in the arm. That's the best I have, she grunted. Got any better ideas, genius?
You know, she's actually right. Never mind what I said before. She's right.
Dialogue, help me.
WLW. Oh my god.
Holding scissors too. I need to be careful.
No, not really, Damien admitted.
Stop playing Sword Art.
The bus stopped, and Damien put on his baseball cap to obscure his newly blacked hair. His sister did the same with her own metamorphized hair. To avoid even more teasing.
Work. Her hair is longer.
Oh, just wait.
I can't wait.
To avoid even more teasing, Damien sneaked through the back corridors he had discovered earlier in the year. Thankfully, the route allowed him to get to his math class undiscovered. The teacher was a tyrannical old Scrooge by the name of Mr. Mirren. As was usual, the crotchety math teacher was sitting at his desk writing worksheets with a bloody-looking red pen. "You are late," he griped, making another slash with the pen. "Sorry, sir," Damien replied, taking his seat at his desk, silently cussing out the man for his overdeveloped sense of strictness. There was no one there for crying out loud. He was 5 minutes early. It was a few minutes before the other students arrived to alleviate the atmosphere. Several were on the football team. "Mr. Willard," Damien looked up, dismayed to see the dreaded math teacher in the equally dreaded stance of arms crossed as if to make a double naval cross draw.
Oh, dear.
Hats are against the dress code. Please remove it. Damien prayed that whatever had blacked his hair had come off with the hat. It hadn't.
Nope. I knew it.
"What happened to your hair?" The incredulous note in Mr. Mirren's voice would have been comical under other circumstances, but right now Damien was concerned with sinking as far as he could under his desk without sitting on the floor. I dyed it, Damien lied. That would set the teacher off, but he was not about to draw more attention to himself than was needful. Once class is done, move your delinquent butt to the principal's office.
What?
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 What? Okay, dyeing one's hair should not be a problem.
You'd think
He's-
that, but we're in the
Yeah.
90s.
Well,
Yeah.
no. In Japan, if you dye your hair a weird color, you have to go home and you have to dye it to a normal color. That I would expect if this took place in Japan, but it doesn't.
Once his eyes said he was burning, he had been burning to do it for a long time. I think it looks cool, someone behind him said. Damien turned and Mandy gave him a shy grin. Damien shook his head. Girls are weird, he thought.
Wait, how old is he? How old is he? Is he like
15, 16.
Bullshit. Bullshit. This man is slaying pussy.
Obviously violated the dress code. Moving on, Mr. Mirren said, turned to the blackboard and writing the lesson down. As usual, it was a boring lecture on finding the answer in derivative equations. Damien was almost glad to leave for the principal's office. Principal Irving was a middle-aged man who was always urging students to do their best, usually with an Air Force story. Mr. Willard, he said, looking shocked as Damien was shown in. What a surprise. Hello, Principal. Damien replied, looking down. All right, Mr. Willard, the principal said, motioning the seat in front of his desk. What are you in for? Mr. Mirren disapproves of my new hair, Damien responded lamely.
That was funny.
I see. I see. Principal Irving said, nodding and giving Damon's hair an examination. I was tired of people calling me Carrot Top and things like that. Damon lied, and so I got my hair done. Well, Principal Irving said, folding his hands, you don't need to change yourself to make people like you. If you do that, you're always going to be trying to be something you're not.
Yeah,
oh,
my-
that's true.
Oh my! What? I'm sorry. Did you? Wait, I know you said you made this up when you were 17 or something, but my God, man, were you on a Power Rangers binge or something? Look, man, we've all been there. I swear. But
I think
Yeah, we
so.
have.
Yeah, I think it was Bakugan as well.
oh my God!
Dear.
Oh dear Lord!
Damien sighed inwardly. One of those riveting motivational pep talks that was supposed to make you feel good. Damien just found them exasperating. Okay, sir, he said slowly. I hope I don't get detention. Principal Irving went to hand. In light of your good work, Eckert, I'll let you off with a warning. This time only, mind.
A warning!
a warning not to get your hair changed. A warning not to get your
The teacher just the teacher just wasted his time. And
Man.
he's warning the student?
I'll give you a warning not to have weird magic things happen to you.
Done. I swear to God. I swear to you. If you pull this off like one of those Diary of a Wimpy Kid books, have illustrations in the book, I swear, I think this could be a bestseller.
Yes, I agree.
This thing is brilliant. I'm part of the cult now.
I would totally buy this if you put this on your Amazon account. I would totally buy it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I'd buy this in a heartbeat.
Damien was so relieved he could have kissed the principal.
Yeah.
Thanks, he said, shaking the principal's hand vigorously. Now, go back to your class, the principal said, waving him off. Damien got out of the office as quickly as he could, with interested looking, what with interested rather than disgusted look from the cheerleaders as he passed on the way. It crossed his mind that something else had happened. Plain black hair, however sudden, on obviously redheaded, would not occasion this kind of interest or attention from Mr. Mirren. Damien dashed in the bathroom and groaned when he saw the shiny red streaks in his hair.
Oh, boy.
no! Oh no!
So you got a new hair job, Luther.
Oh my god!
Why is this
I'm
so
throwing
funny?
money at the screen and nothing's happening.
Help! 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 Help!
Shut up and take my money, Don.
Damien did not need the mirror to know it was Mike Troy, one of his constant tormentors over the months since he had got to this stinking school. I heard you were muscling in on the girls, Mike said, closing on
What?
Damien. Gravely exaggerated. Damien backed away. This was not a new tactic. A lot of the time, jerks made up reasons to justify picking on smaller people. I don't like anyone flirting in my territory, he said, raising his fist.
Oh, god damn it.
The accusations of my pimping have been greatly exaggerated.
Help! Oh dear.
Dragon Blaster is just amazing.
This is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Davian took a karate stance, but knew it was
Oh
not
my
going
God.
to work on this guy any more than it had worked on the attendant in Blackjack Entertainment. Mike was taller than Damien was and powerfully built enough to rival Arnold Schwarzenegger.
The rival Schwarzenegger. He's just this kid at school. Hyperbole
is not a thing of students. I guess so. I'd change it.
No, I think you should keep it.
That is specifically in the book.
text?
No, the built enough to rival Arnold Schwarzenegger is in the book. Yes.
But the bit after the hyperbole, blah blah
No.
blah. That bit was
No, that was not mine. No.
Oh,
Maybe I should put it in.
there.
Yeah, that's a keeper.
You need to put that in there. Just the sort of thing the narrator would say.
Yeah. Have the narrator say it.
Help me. I'm gonna get a heart attack laughing
Thank you. I'm glad.
for mentioning it.
Yeah, I'll make a mental note. Insert narrator here.
Yeah. The narrator is wonderful.
My
All right.
God.
Ooh, scary, Mike taunted, putting his arm back for a blow. Damien moved instinctively, ducking the blows, came for his head, and sweeping Mike's feet out from under him with a spinning kick. He
What?
exited the bathroom as quickly as possible, leaving a moaning Mike to recover on his own.
Wait, what?
Well, he's the protagonist. What do you expect?
True.
Damien was shocked that he had done that. He had never done that to anyone, ever. Apparently the game had made even more changes in him, and Damien did not like it. After the episode with Mike, Damien decided that somehow he needed to get himself examined. Maybe a doctor. Or a geneticist.
We're not gonna put the geneticist.
How did you get... Oh, go for it. How did you get your hair to look like that? Damien smiled on his heel and saw Mandy look at him with an inquisitive expression on his face. Damien thought his face was about to explode. I have no idea! He said through gritted teeth. Damien gave him a look that spoke volumes, but her tongue had to do some of the work. You must have gone to a salon to get it done, and That was when she noticed the lack of freckles on his face, as well as the fact that he was not wearing glasses. What happened? Bend. Instead of interest, he seemed shocked. Like I said, Damien shrugged. I don't know. I woke up this morning and my hair has turned black over the day. It's as simple as that. Mandy shook her head. Wow, she said. That was it. Over the next few hours of boredom, he drifted, waiting for the exit bell. It came after what felt like an eternity. Damien dashed to the bus. Damien dashed to the bus and went inside. After giving his mom her standard come home from school hug and kiss, he went downstairs, got his headset on, picked up the controller, and began playing the game. Michelle came down eventually, looking hot and mad in every variation of the phrase. She shook her now waist-length hair at him.
Jesus.
Oh, wow!
I want that damn game out of the house, she shrieked like a strangled cat.
Strangled cat.
Why the sudden change of mind? Damien asked. My hair has grown 2 feet in 3 hours, she snarled.
Oh my god!
I tried to cut it, but it grew back in 4 minutes.
Oh dear!
What happened to trying to figure out how to beat the game? He asked. Michelle looked as if she was trying to calm down, but she only managed to look sullen. I am done with this mother effing game, she said through gritted teeth that was barely recognizable as a smile. So, what should we do about it? David asked. We, and by that I mean you, take the game back, she explained. If it doesn't change anything, we will get it back. Damien wondered what would happen if he told her no. Seeing her face, he decided that saying no would be a very good way to get his head handed to him. He got up, took the game out the drive, put it in its case, put on shoes and coat, then went outside to find the store. Damien was wondering where to go next when he saw the turnaround where he could find the store. He rounded the corner and gasped. There was nothing but an old antique store.
I was expecting something like that. Seriously.
Hate when that happens.
So this is before the next part. Disappearing shops, changing appearances, new abilities, whatever will happen next. Unfortunately, we have to leave the story of Damian Willard for the time being and turn to Kevin Howard. Kevin lives in Las Vegas, Nevada. He is captain of his football team, has a girlfriend most guys would sell their soul for, and good looks in abundance. He's been playing the game that has been of such significance for some time, but his experience has not changed. His girlfriend Jessie has also been playing the game, but her appearance has not changed. The next chapter will be on him. If you get scared, you may skip reading this book and turn to something with fluffy bundies and dandelions. If not, read on.
Keep that! Keep that! Keep that! Keep that!
Fluffy bunnies and dandelions, you know?
God, man. This was so worth the wait.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I'm glad.
We've been asking for you to read this forever. I'm so glad we made us wait.
I am too.
We're joining the cult now.
What? I was always the cult.
I just learned there was a cult.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
What can you say to this? Like, seriously.
It's more 90s than the 90s.
Oh. It's true.
Yeah, and I wrote this 8 years ago. So this is 2012-ish.
Again, if you make it a novelization like Diary of a Wimpy Kid or something with like little illustrations, I swear to you, this might sell well with the adult market.
Possibly.
Oh no!
Yeah.
It's if you do that, it's definitely going to become a bestseller.
I will have to.
Adults.
I'll have to employ an an artist. Sorry, there. We're apparently in slave times now.
You could possibly ask Pixity.
Why can't
Oh,
you draw?
probably.
Why can't you illustrate yourself?
Because I have dysgraphia.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
It's not like it's not a serious mental disorder. It's just my fine motor skills are disconnected from my brain,
Oh.
and I have my gross motor skills, like typing and working with my hands, are much better developed than my fine motor skills. My handwriting is very awkward. It looks like a 6-year-old's.
I think you would be able to get away with stick figures doing with this thing.
I think it would be
probably,
very.
Yeah,
It would
I
be-
completely right.
It would be very difficult when I get to the actually cool bits as opposed to the funny bits.
That's true.
We want them all to be funny bits. The funny bits are the cool bits.
Well, different kind of cool.
I believe Zilfratz is also doing something, and you could also always ask Dr. Crow. He's doing
That's true. That is
comics.
true. That is true. I do need to. I'll ask them and say, hey, I have like 70% of this manuscript done. Can you help me? I want to do something fun. I hope that it's like it seems like it's relatively like good, but it's like
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, even the bad bits are in kind of in so bad it's good territory. So
Yeah.
That doesn't come off as a backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
I was
it's
saying, this is all terrific. I want to see this grow and prosper.
I want this. I want this
Oh,
so
yeah.
much.
Oh yeah, I'd totally buy this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a book that I've like put some work into recently, but now it's just like this early bits are a little bit better developed than the later bits. The later bits are kind of tismy, and they actually kind of lose the comedic edge that this had. I had to inject a lot of comedy into this because otherwise it's just like, this is ridiculous. How can anybody take this seriously? It's dragons fighting.
The point is not to take it seriously.
Yeah, but that was the problem back in the day. That was the problem back in the day that I just like, how did I take this seriously?
Did you really
Wow.
take it seriously? Sorry.
Yeah, I just like wondering like, how did I ever take this seriously? This is this is really, really silly.
Well, the thing is, there's some stuff that starts out silly but gets more serious as time goes on, and it kind of depends on your skills if that works or not. So you can make it go from silly to serious. You can. It's possible.
That is true.
Or you could make it go from silly to even more silly.
That's true too.
That might be the way to go. Who knows?
Yeah.
My face hurts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
well,
my face hurts too.
I got
well, the
myself
thing-
ready.
Smiling so much.
Well, the thing is, there's it gets better where you have kids turning into dragons, wearing power armor,
Oh my
fight,
god!
Make sure
fighting
the
with
dialogue is
with mech suit wearing Robo Knights.
make sure that the dialogue is still as sharp as it
Snappy.
is now.
Yeah,
Oh god.
you're welcome, friends.
I mean, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad that there was a great deal of enjoyment to be had from this one.
Yeah, this is why we have been wanting you to read it.
Yeah. I edited this a little bit ago just so I could like read it on stream. Kind of, yeah. That actually might be a good choice. That might be a good choice. I do know Teddy. She's actually in the Discord. Gundam with Dragons. Not quite. It's basically more like
Sounds like more
Power
like
Rangers
Animorphs.
with dragons is what it sounds
Yeah.
like.
yeah, it's yeah, I can all right, I will read okay, I was kind of nervous because I was just like, okay, I hope this like is like good because like I was very nervous because like this is one of the things that I'm like least confident in.
Oh, I would. Here's the thing with the
But
way you
yeah.
presented it.
Anyway. Yes. Yes.
Did you start saying something?
Oh, I did, but I thought he was about to follow up with something. Okay, what I was going to say was
I'm
with the way you presented it, it works. It really works very well. I think
Yes,
has
it does.
A lot of possibility there. I got out what I wanted to say.
yeah.
That family is something else.
No, they don't wear max leather jackets. No.
Oh,
Aww.
At least they don't wear leather jackets yet. They get like
yeah,
gauntlet
there we go.
bracers.
That's what I was waiting for.
They get gauntlet brace. They get GI Joe Sigma 6 style gauntlets that hold their power, that digitize their power armor.
But don't they turn into dragons?
Yes, they do.
Well,
It goes onto their body. It expands with their bodies.
So they become scales. So they get scales and stuff, right? Are they going to go to school with scales on them next?
No, it's gonna be weird. No, it's
gonna be weird. But that would be weird.
No, it's like American Dragon Jake Long, where they can turn back and forth. They can go back and forth, and they live in they run a. They. I don't want to spoil too much, but like I'll read more of it at another point in time. I already read the next chapter. The next chapter, it was really short. But it kind of introduces like the other pieces of the 5-man band that we're going to be working with here.
Okay, because we have 2 of them so far. There are going to be 3 others coming up.
Yep, we got. Well, I actually like the 6-man band with 3 girls, 3 boys.
Okay. Did the others have this good dialogue?
I think I already read the last one a couple weeks ago. I think like 2 or 3 weeks ago. The next bit where it's Kevin and Jesse, and at the very end they're transformed into they're for a minute they're sucked into the game, and then they're turned into their avatars. Or at the very end of the chapter.
Wait, Kevin and his girlfriend?
Yeah.
Ooh!
Wrong. Yeah, you haven't. Well, I've already read it, so I can put it up and just put up create a playlist of Dragon Blaster readings.
Oh,
Yes.
please do that. Please, please, please.
Okay. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, thank you all. I'm glad that like the response from people was very positive. Very surprising. Well, yeah, I put a lot of effort into trying to make this like a lot better than like the 16-year-olds stuff, and kind of like actually put in some like a little bit more comedy in there, because like it would work a little bit better as kind of more comedic. Anyway, thank you all for coming, and I'll see you later. Adios.
Bye, guys.
Holy shit. Okay, we're going. Go!